Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community and forum, and the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from fresh farm ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind.
Well, good morning and hello, kids, and welcome to season 3 and episode number 239. And I know it for sure because this time I checked of the Daily Beaver Morning Show here on the Crier Media Network. Yeah. And I put a little extra into the yeah because today is Friday. It's Friday, October 27th, 2023, and it looks like there's going to be some rain at the Beaver Lodge, but also some sun at some point this afternoon, and then more rain. It's just the way it goes. I'm your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver, eh? And with me is, as always, my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. We have a Friday morning Beaver bite for you, so settle in. But first, yes, we must thank our founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and CanadianTarot.com. And then we do the most important thing we do on this show, which is say good morning to you, Mr. Grizzly, and ask you how your mental health is doing, sir.
Oh, good morning, Mr. Beaver. Mental health. Yeah, I think it's good. I think it's really good, actually. I fell asleep on the couch last night, sometime around 6 p.m., trying to watch a documentary. It's like, I'm really tired. And woke up somewhere close to midnight, crawled into bed, fell right back to sleep, and didn't wake up until the alarm went off at 5. And then I needed that extra hour. My primary alarm is 5 to wake me up, and then I just sort of lie there in a daze. And then the secondary alarm goes off at 6. That's when I get out of bed. I had to snooze the secondary alarm. So, yeah, so I must have been really tired.
Ooh. According to the kits here, your computer's eating up a lot because Pixel Paul is back and you have the clarity of Bell Internet, apparently.
I'll see what I can do to remedy that. Wow. Because it looks great on our end, right?
Not on my end. Not on you are.
Oh, no?
You are almost all fuzz.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, on my screen.
Let me see what I can do to remedy this then. Hang on.
All right.
Oh, yeah, I can see. I'm just looking at it on my phone here. Yeesh. All right. I think I'm gonna have to reboot, actually.
Okay, though.
You'll. Yeah. I don't know what is going on. I've got nothing in the background that is causing this. There's no rhyme nor reason. I've closed everything. So.
All right. Well, when in doubt, reboot.
Restream. Yeah. Let's give it a minute or two and see if it pushes through.
Okay.
And then if that doesn't fix it, I'll reboot.
Okie dokie. I'm doing okay. I have to say.
Good.
I didn't have too many side effects from the shot, although I was more sluggish on the second day. First day I felt great. Not so bad that I couldn't do my day, but there was one meeting that was going to be in person that I shifted to Zoom just because I'm dragging my butt a bit.
Mm.
But I did have choir practice that evening, which I went to, and I did have a curling match later that evening, which, again, if you heard the Eager Beaver curling report, which is we won our first match in A, despite the fact I was feeling sluggish. So, um, you know, um, so yeah, feeling fine, feeling dandy. Uh, my 5G top up obviously worked very well because I'm crystal clear on you.
Yeah.
So,
That's what
y-
my problem is. I need to get the
yeah,
other shot. I need a new 5G
yeah, yeah.
injection.
We're not helping. Hey, hear us, guys, at Castle at Bouncy Castleman. There really is 5G in there. You can tell by our reception.
Mm.
Oh, we're not. No, that's bad, 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 bad. Um, we have lots of news for you because there's some interesting things that happened yesterday. A seeming reversal of the government on climate change policy, which isn't really, but it's going to be spun as one. Uh, a new Supreme Court justice as well. So there's a lot going on. Okay, Mr. Grizzly says, "I'll be back." All right, you'll be back. You'll be back. I can be Mozart. Dad joke. Okay. I diz the classical music joke. Hey, hey. All right. Let's see what we have. Well, like I said, we have a no. I have a clip for that, so I need Mr. Grizzly to come back for the Supreme Court justice. Okay, so let's talk about the climate change stuff. Uh, it seems that this year, because the provinces present their carbon plans to the federal government to see if they meet the threshold that the government would want. And then the government decides whether or not the carbon backstop applies or not. So, for example, in provinces like Nova Scotia, where the carbon backstop, the federal backstop, I keep on wanting to add an R. Let's try that again. In Nova Scotia, where the federal backstop does not apply or did not apply, their latest plans did not meet federal standards. So now the backstop applies. So, in many provinces in Atlantic Canada, there was a 1-2 punch of the coming into effect of a federal backstop. And again, a lot of people are blaming the federal government for that, but that's not the federal government's fault. That's your provincial government that decided that they really just didn't want to do the basic minimum that was required in order to meet our climate goals. And therefore, the federal government had to basically say, well, I'm sorry, but you are not getting any dessert until you eat your broccoli. And of course, the premier's all happy with that because even though they cry, but then they get to blame the federal government for it and they don't get to take any heat. And then they get to look like the champions who are fighting the federal government and get the votes. So there's a vested interest in them not doing it, not collaborating with the federal government in that way, if you're doing the hyper-partisan politics. So, and then this year, there was a fuel efficiency standard that came into effect. Now, in provinces like Ontario, where we've had the federal backstop for a while and it's been increasing slowly, um, this new thing that happened in July was only a couple of cents more. But in Atlantic Canada, they had both the carbon regulation fee, which is, and it's not just like year one. Now we're in year 5 or 6, right? So we're not starting at $20 a ton for them because we've already passed that. So whatever the rate it is at now, $65 a ton or whatever, that's where it is now. So it opens there, and then they had the charge. So it was a big jump in their energy bills, and particularly in Atlantic Canada because they felt both of them at the same time. what has happened also is that in Atlantic Canada, it's one of the regions in the country that heats itself the most with heating oil as opposed to gas, for example, or other forms, electricity, for example. And in addition to that, because of the relatively low population size, there are less options for mass transit as well. So they have less options for actual heating and less options for mass transit. So the whole concept of carbon regulatory fees in one way is to make pollution more expensive, yes, but in another way is to change behavior. But if you want to change behavior, you need alternatives to change behavior too. And those aren't as available in Atlantic Canada as they are in other regions. So the federal government has decided that for 3 years it will suspend these fees on heating oil specifically in Atlantic Canada, and it will couple that with added rebates on fuel pumps, heat pumps, sorry, heat pumps, which are an alternative system that takes air from the outside and heats it or cools it, and then uses it to heat your house and. Therefore, you're not needing to use heating oil, and it could really reduce your bills by a lot, or you won't be needing as much because you'll probably always need to keep a little bit as a backstop. Because I mean, this is Canada, and if the temperature does go below that which the heat pump can handle, you'll probably want some extra heating there. But you will definitely will be reducing your costs a lot, particularly if you assume that carbon taxes will keep on increasing over time if the next government decides not to scrap them altogether and send us back to square one. Um, so it creates a situation for opposition to say, well, see, there, you don't really hold to your principles. The carbon tax doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. And then it also creates a door for saying, well, you reduced it for them on this, so why not reduce it for us on this, right? This whole slippery slope. There's also gonna be a doubling of rebates, I believe, to rural areas in Canada. I believe they were getting a 10% rebate, and that's been doubled to 20%. And I will, hopefully, when Mr. Grizzly comes back, get to the Government of Canada press release on that and try to find out more information about the specifics of the program. Um, but it really seems to be designed that for those of you who can, you know, over the next 3 years, move to a heat pump, we will give you much more financing to do it. We will make it even more accessible for people who have less money for it. And that's something that we're doing over here at the Beaver Lodge. In fact, we have our appointment. They're coming on Tuesday. We've been planning for it for a while, but yeah, we're doing that too with the Canada um, green energy rebate, or I can't remember what the name of the actual program is, but the federal one that gives incentives to go green. And here in our city here, they also, with some funds, the municipality created a fund as well where you can get an interest-free loan for a certain number of years to help make those energy upgrades. So we've been able to couple both programs together to get a decent amount of interest-free loans, one for 10 years and one for 20 years, and then some rebates on the things that we buy in order to make the place more energy efficient, assuming that we meet GHG and energy efficiency targets. And the assessors come in, you have a pre-assessment, and when you do all the work, you have a post-assessment, and then somebody calculates that, and right. So this is going to make it more accessible to people who may have less money by making the incentives to switch to heat pump. So really what's happening here um, is that we have this overall policy. Now we've had it for 5 or 6 years, and we're continuing down this lane, right? By trying to encourage people with the second surcharge that was there. And the thing with the second charge surcharge, you have to remember, is that for the first one, the carbon regulatory fee, there is a rebate that comes back. For the second one, there is not one that comes back, but it does apply to bigger polluters. And it's, the goal is to try to get people to reduce the actual amount of carbon that is being produced in this instance. So both programs go hand in hand. Um, so we could actually say that what's going on is that after 5 or 6 years of this, that we are seeing um, what regional needs are, how this program, because one size fits all programs are usually not very good. So it's been applied as a one size fits all program in a way because let's remember again, provinces and territories were first given the option to create a made in province or made in territory program. It just had to meet some basic standards and there would be no federal backstop. So you have this situation where we're realizing 6 years in, well, because of Atlantic Canada doesn't have that many options to change for mass transit, and they really are much more dependent on heating oil, which is very expensive to heat their homes in other regions, that the program can be slightly tailored for that region in that way. For rural Canada, because most people do have to drive in the public transit, the options are not there. Okay, that rebate gets doubled to 20% from 10%. That
Completely reasonable.
completely reasonable. And listen, if there are situations in other regions like when people say, well, if you did it for heating oil, why won't you do it for gas? Well, maybe we don't need to do it for gas, but maybe there is something else about your region or where it is that you live or the dynamics in your region. There was you know, the biggest employer in the whole sector went down, and all of a sudden, a bunch of people are out of work temporarily. Okay, we go in with a temporary solution, and right. The thing that you have to realize is that this is really what's not really no different. In theory, it's no different than when all these provincial premiers tried the gimmicky, "Oh, we're gonna cut 5 or 6 cents off the gas tax," right? Similar thing, except this program federally, as opposed to the provincial ones where it's, "Hey, we're just gonna give you a gas tax rebate and that's it." This one is, we're going to suspend the increases in the taxes and in the fees for 3 years and provide you with additional incentives to move to heat pumps. Please move to heat pumps during these 3 years, which ends up helping us meeting our GHG reduction goals. What the provinces did by just taking 5 or 6 cents or 12 cents or how many cents off the gas tax for 6 or 7 months and then maybe reinstated it, did absolutely nothing to help with the environment. And you're not even sure if you got the rebate because they weren't mandated to pass it down. And sometimes, often enough, the price of gas goes down those 6 or 12 cents in a week on its own, just with price fluctuations. This one, you actually see the reduction that you get in your heating oil bill because it comes directly to you, and you get the additional incentives. Because trust me, in Atlantic Canada, Atlantic Canadians know how to use their tongues, and if their heating bill does not show that reduction, if the heating bill company's just like, "Oh, thank you, we're just gonna take that as an extra bonus to us," there will be hell to pay.
Yes, there will be.
Yes. So yeah, it's, hmm, it's gonna be interesting. This is going to create a bit of a mess, and the opposition is going to have a field day with this, and you're probably gonna have, maybe the NDP or the Greens saying, "Oh my god, it's so terrible, you're abandoning all your principles," and if you're a serious government and you apply something as a blanket solution, and then you realize that there are certain perverse effects in certain regions or for certain demographics, you make adjustments. You just do. So that's what's going on here. Um, but it opens the door. It definitely opens the door. And if they don't have their if they didn't sit there and do this exercise, well, if we do that, they might say that. So how do we counter that? 'Cause if the federal government is not putting the emphasis when they're talking on the added rebates for the regions and giving people extra help to transition to heat pumps over the next 3 years, which is ultimately better because if you get the people to transition, you actually are reducing the GHGs. So fingers crossed, but we know they're going to make a mess of this. The opposition party is going to do their
Well,
best to misinform and disinform. There are so many avenues for it. And again,
yeah, they're going to
it's
hop all over
not
this.
easy. Oh, yeah. And it's not easy to explain in 30 seconds.
No, it's not. And let's remember something else too, folks, if you can. This is a perfect segue for what I wanted to discuss. It's like an unbelievable segue. Danielle Smith in Alberta, the premier of Alberta, the individual who oversaw the largest energy price increase in Canadian history, a historic 400% jump, hurting every single Albertan. Then she put a moratorium on alternative sources of energy, blocking future relief from wild fluctuations. Who does she work for? Alberta is on a mission. These are her words I'm going to read right now. Alberta is on a mission to deliver more of what the world needs, and now we are doing it in bold new ways with new technologies. I'm genuinely thrilled to observe the impressive progress in Alberta's hydrogen industry in the Edmonton hub. This is another great economic opportunity we will capitalize on. Providing clean, affordable energy to the world is one of the most pressing problems imaginable. But 400% increase is not what I would call affordable in any way, shape, or form. Oh, and what is the name of her party again? The United Conservative Party. They work for their puppets. Their puppets. Their puppet masters are Big Oil in Alberta and Big Grocery in Ontario, along with Big Development. The Conservatives do not care about you. The evidence is available for all to see and read. And as evidenced by their leader, the Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the loyal leader of the official opposition, loyal being a relative term in this case.
Loyal, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Loyal oil? I don't know. Royal oil? Let's see. Loyal leader. Let's see if I can find it here. Once I get my new console built, it'll be easy to just do that. Because if you look at his voting record, he's voted against the average Canadian every single time he has a vote. He's voted against dental care, pharmacare, the child tax credit, $10 a day daycare, affordable housing. He's voted against affordable housing, 8 or 10 times, I believe? But he tells you he's going to provide housing and make mortgages affordable. But when you see somebody renting a strawberry box in Niagara, he doxes the woman and calls it a shack. He does not like Canadians. Conservatives only like the wealthy and will only help the wealthy. And again, conservatives being the wrong term here because they're not conservatives. They're not progressives. They're reformers. Many of them are puppets of the PBCC. But that's a whole other kettle of fish we can wade into on another day.
Mm-hmm.
What they're doing in Atlantic Canada is good. Of course, the Conservatives will make hay of it. They'll do their best to try and screw over the average Canadian and gin up and rage farm so that people will lose sight of what's actually taking place. It's what these reformers do best. Their interest is only in enriching their wealthy oligarch overlords. That's it. They don't give a damn about you. They never will, because they're not progressives. They're not conservatives. They are the reformers. And henceforth, I'm only going to refer to them as that, because they do not represent any of the values of the former Progressive Conservative Party of Canada, even provincially. I know John Robarts is spinning in his grave right now.
Yep, indeed. For some reason, I was looking for the official press release for the announcement of both the Supreme Court Justice and this reduction in fees. And I'm on the Government of Canada news site, and apparently there are no press releases for this, which is really, really weird, because I've been looking at I'd been reading the articles when they came out first, to try and find out when they said that they were going to boost the heat pump funding. Well, by how much and for who and starting when and all that kind of stuff. So I can relate that, and no details on that were given. So I thought I would go to the Government of Canada press release announcing this and then look at the backgrounder so that that would be in there. And for some reason, there does not seem to be a press release, either on Environment Canada and Climate Change or the Government of Canada and USA.
I don't understand that.
Just don't. You would think that it was their big announcement, the two big announcements of the day.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
I am really. I don't understand.
I don't get it, man. It's these are things that should be
This
sort
is
of front page.
standard. I mean,
Yeah.
a freaking
Yeah.
Supreme Court justice, a freaking climate change is like your big marker of differentiation with your main rival. Like, you would think it would be there.
Yeah, it's truly bizarre.
I don't. Yeah. Very, very,
I
very
don't,
weird. This is information
something
that should
is
be very
afoot.
easy to find.
Oh yes, something is afoot.
Oh, there we go. I found it. For some reason, they put it on the Prime Minister's feed rather than on announcement by the Prime Minister rather than announcement by the ministry itself, or just the Government of Canada. So let's see what it says here. Given the pressures faced by households and small businesses that use oil heating, the Prime Minister also announced that the government is moving ahead with a temporary 3-year pause to the federal price on pollution, the fuel charge, on deliveries of heating oil in all jurisdictions where the federal fuel charge is in effect. This pause would begin 14 days from today, that's yesterday. While the fuel charge is already returned to customers through the pollution price rebate, this temporary pause would save a household that uses heating oil $250 at the current rate. On average, while the federal government works with the provinces to roll out heat pumps and phase out oil for heating over the long term. Additionally, the federal government will work with provinces and territories to help people save money over the longer term by making it easier to switch to an electric heat pump to heat their homes. The Prime Minister announced the following new measures that will be piloted first in Atlantic Canada. So they're using it as a pilot project, and if it works, they'll expand it to the entire nation. Darn, which means we're about our heat pump before it's going to expand so that we can take advantage of these new benefits. Darn. Yes, I was really looking. I was looking for you, kids, but yes, there was a little bit of self-interest, I will admit. An upfront payment of $250 for low to median income households, which will be available to those who heat their homes with oil and sign up for a heat pump through a joint federal provincial government program. And a strengthened oil to heat pump affordability program that will partner with provinces and territories to increase from $10,000 to $15,000 the amount of federal funding eligible homeowners can receive for installing a heat pump, adding up to an additional $5,000 in grant funding to match provincial and territorial contributions via co-delivery arrangements. This would make the average heat pump free for lower income households as we continue to minimize upfront costs and make federal programs even easier to access for all households. Okay. On average, homeowners who switch from oil to cold climate heat pumps to heat and cool their homes save up to $2,500 per year on home energy bills. So basically, the incentives are such that you basically get it for free. Not sure. Of course, there's probably a need to front the initial money.
Yes.
Which might be
which is difficult for a lot of people.
Some people.
Yeah.
But just because it doesn't hit every single person, it does hit a lot of people, and those it will hit, if they all switched, that would do a lot of good. So yeah, that's the actual data on the announcement. The Prime Minister said, today's announcement is good news for Atlantic Canadians, rural Canadians, and people across the country. We are putting more money back in your pocket and make it easier for you to find affordable, long-term solutions to heat your home. These measures will help make a real difference. So there you go. Took me a while to find the thing, but I found it. So
Thank
I
goodness.
would assume in that case that the Supreme Court justice announcement would probably also be on the Prime Minister's page rather than the Minister of Justice page, because I'm sure that this is the type of announcement that the Prime Minister makes.
Well, this I can understand why. If you look at what we've got on the screen there from Cassie, who is a farmer in Manitoba, the carbon tax costs the average family the average family farm an additional $14,000 a year. I'm the carbon regulatory fee should not be applied to small family farms. It should be applied to big industrial, big farming.
Yep.
It should not be applied to small family farms because small family farms have a difficult time enough as it is getting by. And I was like, yo, Justin, if you're watching, you should make this change.
Yes. And if the party, as I keep on begging it to for the last 15 years, develop an actual rural strategy.
Yes. Because they're Canadians too. And if you believe that we're supposed to be there to represent all Canadians, the Prime Minister's representing all Canadians, do your damn job.
I understand you're an urban party and you have the cities pretty much on lock unless there's a change election where you get swept out. But you can't rely on that all the time. And you absolutely it's like there's a reason you're nowhere in Alberta and Saskatchewan, Manitoba. And it's not only the mythology and the fact that there's a well-oiled conservative machine, it's the fact that you don't actually have a rural strategy. You don't have a rural strategy. I really thought when they named a minister for rural Canada in the north, Dan Vandel, all those years ago, that there was like an actual, there was going to be a focus on that. And it's like, finally, but there doesn't seem to be.
No.
It's just because that mistake in the last session by trying to add that additional amendment to the gun bill that basically tanked it. If you had a good rural strategy, that never would have happened. If you had any rural strategy, that would not have happened. And this policy going in, somebody would have realized, particularly at the moment where the federal government decided, oh, no, Nova Scotia, this carbon plan is not going to work anymore. And for any other provinces who had one, wasn't using the federal backstop before and had to switch, I think New Brunswick was also the case at one point. I think their plan originally didn't meet it and then doesn't. And maybe even Newfoundland as well, if I'm not, like I said, I'm not mistaken. But the backstop is now applying in all 4 Atlantic Canada provinces, and that wasn't the case at the beginning. That somebody might have turned around and said, ooh, well, wait a minute, both of these things are going to kick in at the same time while everybody's talking about affordability like this. Maybe we should make an adjustment now. If you had somebody there, because let's face it, because most of Atlantic Canada is rural Canada.
Yes. Most of it is. It's true. It's true.
That's the party's home base.
The thing that seldom is acknowledged is rural communities across the country because to quote former Prime Minister Stephen Harper, when he had a conversation with Danny Williams, he said to Danny Williams, I don't need Atlantic Canada to win an election, which gives you all the information you need to know what conservatives think about rural Canada. They don't give a shit. They really don't, which is why Danny Williams came up with the ABC in the next vote when he was premier and he was a conservative, a progressive conservative premier of Newfoundland, said vote anyone but conservative. He hated Harper, and for good reason. Yeah. Something else I want to add to this conversation that because I'm very often thought of as the white-collar, liberal cuck soy boy who lives in downtown Ottawa in $1 million condo who earns $200,000 a year. None of that is true. I've been working class my whole life. I worked construction for 29 years. I do have a white-collar job today. After 29 years on construction sites, I have a white-collar job. That being said, when you say you have a white-collar job, does that mean you're earning white-collar dollars? No. There are tons of people who have white-collar jobs who are not earning white-collar dollars. It's a white-collar job with blue-collar dollars. I'm in a rent-controlled apartment that was built in 1959. Okay? I don't eat soy because I'm allergic to it. I like my steaks rare. I like my Guinness cold. I like my whiskey neat. And every now and then I like a nice cigar. I'm the furthest thing from a liberal soy boy cuck. I'm not belong to any particular political party. And oh, by the way, I've lived in Newfoundland, New Brunswick, and Alberta. Oh, also Quebec. Just to name a few of the places that I have lived. I've traveled to every province in the country. I've not been to the territories yet. Only because it's prohibitively expensive for me to get there and I have a limited budget. But I need people to remember that. Sorry, Hugh. Cold Guinness. I like it extra cold. I need people to remember that many Canadians who reside in cities now didn't always do so, and have not forgotten about their rural brethren, their brothers and sisters, their friends and family who live in other parts of the country that are largely ignored by the political elites, of which Pierre Poilievre is. He is a political elite. He's a millionaire politician who has only ever worked in politics. He tries to come across as the common man and connect with the common man, but he has no idea what it is like to be common. He is like Donald Trump in that he would scrape you off his shoe like muck if you got too close to him. He doesn't care about you. He cares about his oligarchs who are big oil, big development, and big grocery. Nothing more. How to keep them wealthy and how to get himself into power. I know I'm going on a bit of a diatribe about him today, but for good reason. I keep reading how he's the next prime minister, and I keep telling people, do you really think he's going to be around in 2 years? The next election is 2 years away. I don't give a damn about your polling numbers right now. Talk to me 3 months before the election. Talk to me the day of the election. Polling numbers today are meaningless. And I know you're big about the polling numbers, sir. But for me, whatever. Whatever. They're meaningless.
I say the same thing. No. Polling numbers are not meaningless, but they tell you where you are, or where you have been. If you're looking at polling numbers now, the only thing you can glean from them is where we have just been, because I've said it on the show. Because of all the polling numbers you are going to look through in a full term, not an election that goes early in a minority parliament, but a full term. Usually, unless we find out at the end that it was a change election and that mood existed then, is the most insignificant poll, ultimately, looking back after an election takes place, is the mid-term summer poll, right in the midterm.
Yes.
It's usually the one. This is the area where usually the incumbent government, if there's some dissatisfaction over its long in the tooth, does start looking at other parties, kicking the tires, sample them, gets dates around.
Yes.
Right? Goes a couple of dates. Yeah, you're kind of cool. Like this. Yeah, we've been dating you for the last 8 years. Yeah. It's all right, but you snore and keep me up at night, and every now and then you're grumpy, and maybe there's something better. Let's go take a look. Oh, well, hey, Pierre. Gee, ooh, you got a makeover. Oh, I want to spend more time with you. Oh, you're still that same prick. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hey, Jagmeet. Oh, you're still that same. Okay. How was he? Yeah, you know what? I think I still like you. I went and looked around, and when I thought I could do better, actually I can't.
Yeah.
It's like, you think you could do better? Like I could just say, like, you think you could do better? Go ahead, take a look.
Be my
Go
guest.
see. Just like,
Be my guest, be my
Just
guest, be my
don't do
guest.
the "You'll come back, you'll see," because then they won't. But hey, go take a look, see. So, um, but yes, I mean, but I'm not the type of person also like this. They didn't. I've never been polled in all my life, so polls must be crapped, or they didn't poll me.
Mm.
I was like, or how they just polled 2,000 people. How can you sample thing? Trust me, people have put it's math. And people have been
Mm.
working at math for a long time. They kind of got this down. Okay, so
They didn't poll me. Well, thank goodness, because that's the last thing I want is to get polled. I mean, my goodness. You meant a telephone poll.
oh,
Oh, a poll over the telephone, not a poll with telephone lines. But I thought you meant a poll.
no,
A-
no, no, no,
mm,
no, 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 no,
that,
no.
that was a joke.
Yes, yes, yes.
It's kind of
You,
a
you
joke.
need to watch Madonna's Truth or Dare movie.
Yes. Oh, you knew exactly where I was going, right?
Yes.
That's
Maybe
an
we should
ancient
take a
pop
poll.
culture reference. We need to take a poll.
Yes. Maybe you should take a poll. Some people take a knee, some people take a poll.
Yes, and it was the one dancer in the crew
Yes.
who wasn't gay.
Yes.
Take a poll, he was all offended. If you know, you know.
Yep. Oh man. Okay. Also, yesterday, uh, the Prime Minister announced a new Supreme Court justice because, of course, a spot became vacant when former, well, now former Supreme Court Justice, I believe Russell Brown was his name, got caught on video at a resort in the United States, being somewhat belligerent with other patrons at that resort, where it was alleged he was, to be kind, drunk. Shit faced, and maybe got into an physical altercation. The
Bit of a Donnybrook.
yeah, the justice denies that he did, but regardless, it created a situation where he had to step down because it was becoming embarrassing for the court. So the prime minister took some time. Of course, in Canada, unlike the United States, there is an actual um, people who are interested in the position apply, and then there's an independent committee that vets and creates a short list for the Minister of Justice to consider, and then there's an all-pair party committee that does a sort of vetting and questioning process and all of that kind of stuff. So, unlike the United States, our appointments are not the Republican justice or the liberal justice or the conservative justice or the NDP justice, if ever we had had an NDP prime minister, unlike that which Tasha Sheridan wants us all to believe.
Hmm.
And we talked about her in a previous show. So we won't go back into what she said. But yes, the prime minister did make a nomination to the Supreme Court, and it is a justice from Alberta, uh, and her name is Marie Moreau. She's a Franco-Albertan judge, which is kind of interesting because one of the big complaints that a lot of people have been saying about, well, the Supreme Court's justices needing to be bilingual. Well, that limits opportunities for people out west and other people in places that are not Quebec. And it's sort of like, again, I said, yeah, you know what? If you're studying law and let's say you start being a lawyer and one day you think, hey, you know what? Maybe I'd like to be a Supreme Court justice one day. Well, between the time you decide that and the time you're appointed, there's probably going to be a solid 15 to 20 years, which gives you ample time to learn French if that was an actual career goal that you had.
Hmm.
So, no. And people that aspire to be prime minister or Supreme Court justice or a big position or ambassador to the UN or that type of stuff usually are planners and started planning that career way back if they aspire to it. People who wish to be astronauts. It's not like we pick 1,000 of them. We pick 4 or 5 or 6 for the program at any given time, maybe 8. in a country of 40 million, where there are plenty of smart people.
Oh, yes.
So it's like if you said, like, I'm going to be one of these 8, I'm going to be an Olympic athlete, the gold medals, you have to decide way, 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 way back, right? You're 7, you're 8, you're 9, you're 10, you're playing. It's like, yeah, I want to be an elite tennis player. This is how I'm going to eat. This is how I'm going to exercise. This is the time I'm not going to spend with friends. This is the time I'm not going to spend at school, not having, or I'm going to spend with a tutor instead. I'm going to spend traveling. And so you make a lot of decisions
Yeah.
that lead up into there. So it's not like you wake up one day at like 56 and go, oh, gee, now I want to be Supreme Court Justice, but I don't speak French. Oh, darn, I guess my career limit. Right. So we have a Franco-Albertan judge showing that, yes, it is possible to find someone who's bilingual outside of Quebec who is incredibly competent and who can do the job. So we have a Francophone and a woman from the West who got it on merit.
Well, imagine that.
Okay. The Prime Minister praised her impressive judicial career and dedication to fairness and excellence. She served as the Chief Justice of the Court of King's Bench in Alberta since 2017 and has served on the Supreme Courts of both the Yukon Territory and Northwest Territories. She also was a lawyer in Edmonton where she fought landmark cases for minority languages and human rights. And this appointment is particularly important because it marks the first time in the history of our country that our Supreme Court has more female justices than male.
Oh. I did not know this.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And, some people might say, oh, the Prime Minister is being super woke again. But if you consider that population-wise, there are more women than men. One could say that the Supreme Court of Canada is actually just reflecting the makeup. Finally,
Well, and
for the first time.
I do think that could be the interesting. Were Polyev to survive the next 2 years
Mm-hmm.
and the run up to the next federal election,
Mm-hmm.
he won't have a single woman voting for him. Well, I shouldn't say
No.
that. There's probably a few that
Yep.
will. But I'd say the vast majority of women in this country are smart enough to know that guy does not have any interests for me.
Mm-hmm.
He will take away my right to choose. He wants me barefoot and pregnant
Mhm.
in the kitchen, basically.
And
his overlords definitely want
yes.
that.
And since I'm always saying that the Prime Minister as a boxer seems to be a strategist and playing the long game,
Mhm.
wonder how a conservative private member's bill on abortion that PP lets go through the House will
Mhm.
do at a Supreme Court of Canada where there are 5 out of the 9 justices are female.
Yeah, how's that going to play?
That sound you hear is heads at the PBCC going.
Yes, it is.
The last thing they wanted was a woman from Alberta, Francophone, to be the nail in the coffin of their abortion elimination dreams. I'm just saying, there's a little bit of.
Well,
if you're paying attention, there's a. No, let me just say that there's this book here, and I've got a little sign language going on behind this
right behind
book
it,
right
too.
here. I don't know if you can guess what the sign is, but this is pretty much the Prime Minister doing that. Hey guys, you know this thing that you got? Yeah, I just did this to it. Yes, Kitsasi. Some women hold up the patriarchy for the crumbs they may get, and as we keep on saying, it's a line from Brittany Packnett. I think. I always, yeah.
Not sure.
I have to want to make sure I give her because she's married now too, and changed her name. But She says the your subservience or your devotion to the cause or whatever will not save you from what the white patriarchy has in store for you.
That's correct.
There's Brittany
And
Packnett Cunningham.
we need to get this message out to the people of this country to let them know. Because, ladies, please inform every woman you know of what will be coming with a reform government in
It
power.
doesn't matter how much you love your God. It doesn't matter how subservient you are.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how much you believe. It doesn't matter how much sacrifices you made. At the end of the day, if they get what they want in that world, you are a woman and you will be less than.
Oh, guaranteed.
And how good you were and how devoted you were to making that reality a reality, how devoted you are today to making that reality happen, will have no bearing on the decisions they will make. It will be as if you did nothing. Because when it happens, they will claim all the credit for having done it. You will not get any. And you will be told where your place is.
Well, this Reed just sent this to me. I'm going to put this on the screen here because it's true.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think it won't happen here, you're in for a big surprise. Because it can happen there, it can happen here. This is from at Mona Eltahawy. I don't know if I've pronounced her name correctly.
Eltawi?
I've said for years that white Americans underestimate the danger of white Christian zealots because those zealots are white and Christian, considered the default in the U.S. And now, the second most powerful person in the United States of America is a white Christian zealot.
Yep. Indeed. And when we're talking about white Christian zealot, like we are really talking white Christian zealot, as in, I believe yesterday, or maybe yesterday, yeah, I guess it was yesterday, he was sworn in as speaker, this Mike Johnson guy. And I guess his wife wasn't there. And I guess he was asked. And Mike Johnson, according to the recount, on his wife Kelly not being in attendance for his ascension to House Speaker, quote, "She spent the last couple of weeks on her knees in prayer to the Lord, and she's a little worn out." She prayed. Yeah. So you're telling me that she prayed so hard for you to become speaker that now she's just too tired to find the energy to share with you in person in this great moment of joy for which she prayed so hard that she exhausted herself to the point of not being able to get there.
I got nothing for that.
Really? Or is it the fact she can't stand your ass? Probably because you cheated on her many times, probably when you were drunk because you do have 2 DUIs.
Always point in the direction that you want people to go, not where you've been. That's their
Dude.
That's what they do.
Dude. She prayed so hard that she's so tired. That's why she couldn't be here. Damn.
Well,
There's very few things. There's very few things I do as hard as she prays. I'm just saying, if I prayed so hard for something that great to happen to someone I love and it happened, it would take me being down with COVID to not be there.
Mm-hmm.
It's, dude.
Well, I want to read another thing to you from Mona because it's a long thread, but I'll just read a couple of passages.
Kid Elaine, she probably can't stand the rest of him either, not just his ass.
That's good. That's good. Well, let's add to that. Let's add to
Pew,
the
pew, pew.
conversation. Mona also in it was a long thread, but the second tweet in the thread is so successful has white supremacist patriarchy been at convincing white women that they're lucky to live in the U.S. and not Saudi Arabia or Iran, that so many white women did not pay enough attention to the theocracy that white supremacy was building right here at home. It was being built by white men who look like their fathers, brothers, husbands, and sons, not the scary brown man with beards, right? It was being built by the Mike Johnsons. But it's imperative to understand that the theocrats who look like you and those who don't both follow the same rule book control desire and control our bodies. More simply, control.
Mhm.
It's easy to see It's easy to see theocracy when the theocrats don't like you. It's easy to see fascist when the fascists don't look like you. Unless the United States develops the stomach for a long overdue reckoning with the white supremacist Christian theocracy that has been unabashed in its destruction of Roe v. Wade, abortion rights will not be the only rights it destroyed. Next time you're tempted to ask how women in Iran or Afghanistan could have let it happen, ask yourself how you allowed white Christian zealots to use democracy to cut it at its knees. Anyone who is not an able-bodied, white, cisgender, heterosexual man should fear what is to come. I believe I've said that a number of times on this show, have I not?
Yes, you have.
Or a variation thereof.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, I can walk amongst them. Will it directly harm me, directly impact me as a sole individual? No. Will I feel the impact of it? Yes, because it will affect my sisters. It will affect my niece and nephews. It will affect my friends and family members. It will affect you, sir, my brother from another mother.
Mhm.
And I can't sit idly by and allow this to happen. Because if I do, I'm no better than the people who perpetrate it.
Yep. You have Kitland M said, that's the talk of someone who left bruises where they could be seen. Just saying.
Mm-hmm.
She prayed so hard she couldn't make it.
Yes.
Other theory, or hypothesis, I should say, she wasn't happy about him getting the job.
There's that too, right?
And he wasn't happy about her telling him that she wasn't happy about getting the job.
It's a theory.
So therefore, she had to stay home. If what Kit Linda said could apply, that's pretty much how it would go down.
But,
Yeah.
she fell
And then
downstairs.
Kit Cassie. Yeah, Kit Cassie, did you see his press conference with fellow Republicans where the old lady representative from North Carolina was telling the reporters to shut up? Mr. Grizzly, I sent you a link. There's a little video in there that lasts just 18 seconds. And
yeah, the video's not loading for some reason.
okay. Yes,
It's just a
Representative.
blank screen.
Okay. Representative Virginia Fox of North Carolina told a reporter to shut up during a press conference on October 25th, 2023, after a question about the GOP Speaker nominee Mike Johnson's efforts to overturn the 2020 election. When I tell you that the Republicans said yesterday that the Republicans finally settled on an election denier they could all agree on,
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't kidding.
No, sir, you were not.
I would not be surprised if somewhere down the line, Jack Smith mentions his name in a superseding indictment because why not, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is the most effed up timeline.
Oh, yeah. We're in the upside down, folks. We're in the upside down.
Oh, man. All right. So that one won't work. Let's see if this will work. It is our Minister of Justice who is speaking a little bit, got caught in a scrum. Scrum. More
Mhm.
on the street sort of type thing, talking about the appointment of the new Supreme Court Justice.
I have it loaded up. Just give me a second.
All right.
And I'll put it up on the screen so we can watch.
And hopefully I gave you the right timestamp.
Well, we'll find out, won't we? Here we go. Whoops. Press the wrong button.
Mention to her lived experience, which can help inform her decision making.
Mais j'ai posé des questions en français sur
Whoops.
cet sujet.
Nope.
Qu'est-ce que c'est important?
Go back to the beginning. That 310 is where he switches into French. That was the stop time,
Okay.
not the start time. I knew I screwed up.
Okay. Here we go. We'll try it again, shall we?
I understand there's a new Supreme Court Justice nominee. Why this person, please?
Marie Moreau applied for the position and went through the vetting process and was recommended by the Independent Advisory Board. I vetted her application. I was very, very encouraged by it and made a recommendation to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister accepted that recommendation. She is an incredible jurist with a wealth of expertise, over 20 years' experience at the bench. She's a bilingual person from Alberta. She has a depth of expertise, particularly in criminal law, having done over 30 jury trials in her past. That is a critically important function for the court that is just, about a kilometer from where we're standing right now. And I think also having, for the first time in Canadian history, a majority of women on the court is a tremendous legacy. It's never been done in Canadian history.
A lot of legal scholars parse who gets what position, what they were good at. I'm not a lawyer, you obviously are. Is there something that legal scholars would really sink their teeth into her decisions after she was a criminal lawyer that really would add heft to the court? Is there a special thing that you're looking for there?
I think what we're looking for is, the Supreme Court is an appellate court, right? And we're looking for people that can really understand complex legal matters and distill them in a way that's digestible for Canadians, because the Supreme Court is both the highest court in the land, but it's also the one that's the most visible. And sometimes the most important aspect of ensuring confidence of Canadians in the administration of justice in this country, it's determined by jurists like Marie Moreau, who have an ability to distill concept problems into simple language and then communicate them to Canadians. That's something that Chief Justice Wagner has been working on. I think a person like Marie Moreau, added to the complement of judges he's already working with, just gives him that ability to take things to the next level in terms of communicating, rendering important decisions, but then communicating them to Canadians. And I have tremendous confidence in her ability to do that.
I've also got to ask you, the other prairie provinces lost out, if we could call it that. Is there a reason why Alberta is getting another? Justice Brown was from Alberta, Ms. Justice Moreau is from Alberta. Is there a reason why Alberta keeps getting this lot?
We receive applications from, the convention is that you would have 2 people from the Western provinces, and we receive applications, including when there's an opening like this one, from different parts of eligible provinces, and then those applications go through that vetting process, and I think that's important. You may know that for judges that I'm directly involved in at the Superior Courts and General Appellate Courts, there's judicial appointments committees. So here we have an independent advisory board made up of very renowned individuals who vet those applications. They make the determination about which one should go forward to my desk and ultimately to the Prime Minister's desk. I think that's an important function. I think what we have in this Albertan jurist is somebody who's going to represent the West very, very well and bring that Western perspective to her judicial decision-making function. The fact that she's also a Franco-Albertan, I think that may be a first in Supreme Court history, and that gives an extra added dimension to her lived experience, which can help inform her decision-making.
Mais j'ai posé des questions en français.
There you go.
Yeah. So,
And that was Justice Mr. Arif Irani, by the way, for those listening at home.
I might clean up the audio and the video, the audio portion of that video later because I can run it through an AI and clean all that noise in the background, so it's easier to hear, and then I can post that link.
Wonderful.
Just so it's easier for people to hear, because I had a hard time making out everything he said.
Yeah.
A lot of background noise, so I can clean that up.
Okay. Wonderful. Sorry, excuse me. Can you talk? I have to cough.
I can do that. I'm capable of talking to keep the conversation rolling. I've been known to prattle on from time to time, much like a color commentator in the football booth during Monday Night Football when Howard Cosell was the host. He was a rather eloquent individual who could wax on poetically for hours without actually ever saying a single thing, and yet he could also deliver some wonderful monologues and soliloquies whenever the occasion called for it.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that very, very, very much. In that from a different minister, but in that same clip, and therefore taken at the same time. So there may be, unfortunately, uh, some similar noise, but it'll be at around 5:26, Mr. Grizzly.
Okay.
Another thing that is going on here in Canada is that there's a strike at the St. Lawrence Seaway. The port workers there are demanding an increase in salary. It's very similar to what happened in BC earlier this year with the ports
Okay.
in British Columbia. So the St. Lawrence Seaway, for some reason, I can't seem to find the notes that I had taken down just this morning on that. But the St.
TVO is
Lawrence
still on
Seaway,
strike too, eh?
yeah, TVO is still on strike as well. The St. Lawrence Seaway, basically, I think it's like 75% of things that are shipped in
Yes.
this area goes along that way. And of course, because the amount of population that lives in here and with the proximity to the US border, that's a lot of money in trade that gets affected. Now, when we had the situation going on in Vancouver, or in, well, all over BC, because it was 21 ports, but Vancouver was the big one that people were complaining about. Immediately, like the strike hadn't barely it even started, and you had like the Canadian Federation of Independent Business saying, "Oh my God, this is a terrible thing," and you know, businesses are already not getting supplies because, of course, when they walk off the job, they stop unloading, and if you were waiting for a delivery the next day, you don't get it. So, of course, yes, you start feeling it right away. That makes absolute sense. But then they turn around and say, well, because we're feeling it right away, well, we can't have that in federal government. You must come in and put a stop to that right away. So they all the usual players took the exact same positions. They all followed the playbook, took the exact same positions that were taken in the Vancouver and the BC port strike. The
Hmm.
exact same thing. The Chamber of Commerce is, we got to do something. Canadian Federation of Independent Business, still that same guy, Gwinnett. I can't remember his first name, but his last name's Gwinnett. Or Gwinnett going out and saying, like this, yeah, oh my God, this is terrible. People are feeling the pinch. Your prices are going to go up because, oh, these terrible workers are not. And again, nobody's saying, well, I guess you, the employer, should maybe get on with paying your employees more so that we can
Yeah.
end this strike and make sure that other businesses get their stuff, right? Because all of this is always all the time, right? These unreasonable employees, they're the ones that are causing the problem, but
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
employees weren't able to get to a negotiated deal with the employers before this started. So maybe the employers.
Funny how conservatives always make the common man the enemy in situations like this. But we're for the common man. But that common man better get goddamn well back to work right now.
Right
Funny
now.
how that works, eh?
Yep. So again, as they're trying to make these appeal to unions, they're right there saying, get them back. Get them back right now. Our shipments have just been disturbed one day. Get them back. Pass that legislation. So it's about the sixth day of the strike now. There's about 100 cargo ships, if not more, that are sitting in the channel since this past weekend. That's when the talks broke down between the Seaway Management Corporation and the union representing the workers. Canada's Labour Minister said from the beginning that he would not interfere in the negotiations, which was the exact same position. It's the exact same position he's been taking the last 2 or 3. Say, no, you guys deal with it. Figure it out. You cannot rely on this government whenever somebody says that they're going to take a strike to rush in on the first day and legislate them back to work, which has become the tradition, or threaten to legislate them back to work so they don't have time to use their rights as workers, their rights to union, their right to organize, to advocate for their own, and to try to get the best deal for themselves, especially in a context where we have high inflation, and people's job increases have definitely not kept up to inflation, especially the recent inflation. So yeah, just shut them up, make them take 1 or 2% and send them back to work. Rah, 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 rah. We got to protect the profits. Rah, rah, rah. We got to make sure that these shipping things get to people that need them so they don't lose money. Rah, rah, rah. They're worried about everybody losing money except for the actual workers. Sorry, but if the people that are working at the ports are not consuming enough calories to actually have the energy to keep those things moving, that affects your bottom line, right?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Right? At some point, you got to pay people what they're worth. At some point, you got to make sure that they have enough food in their bellies and that they actually get as close to 8 hours a night of sleep as they can if you want to keep things rolling. There's cost to that.
Oh,
There's cost to not doing that as well.
I love this quote from PNC Bio. This is a tongue-in-cheek comment. This is sarcasm in case somebody's just tuning in and doesn't get it.
And doesn't know PNC Bio.
Exactly. They should be happy to have a job. Unions interfere with my ability to violate their humanity.
Yep.
That is brilliant satire.
Yep.
Brilliant satire.
Yep. Yep. So millions of dollars in grain and exports are at stake. And, well, there's no time to wait for a deal. No time to wait for a deal. That's what the business is. We just got to keep the business rolling. And like this, whatever commitments we have to the people that we actually need to actually make those things roll. No, that doesn't matter. Just keep the things rolling. Yeah, that's not going to work for them. So, yep, tens of millions of dollars in revenue are out the window at the moment. The St. Lawrence Seaway Management Corporation argues that it's been working to come to a fair deal since the beginning. They always say that, but they never seem to get there. I mean, for once, it would be so nice to see a seaway or a rail company or a train company or plane company or teachers union, government unions turn around and say, you know what? We had 2 years to negotiate this collective agreement, and we got it done in a year and a half, and everybody's happy with it. So yeah, no news.
Mm-hmm.
Said we had 2 years, you know what? And we're like, what? We got right to the deadline, and we really tried as hard as we could, but we just couldn't. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You didn't try as hard as you could. So they say they've been working to come to a fair deal since the beginning. Now, Unifor represents the 360 striking workers that are demanding higher wages and better working environments. Lana Payne is the union's national president, and she says this employer has not been willing to make a serious offer at the table. Until we get to that point, we're going to have a dispute. Federal Labor Minister Seamus O'Regan says he doesn't plan to interfere in negotiations, but is keen to see a resolution. Quote, we just keep talking to our American counterparts. They are obviously very concerned and have a lot. Well, that does not make sense. Something got mistranscribed. Sorry. They're
That
obviously
happens.
very concerned. I would like to show you this clip of Seamus O'Regan because right in the first days, he said he wasn't going to look at this. We're at about 6 days now. And the first days, he says, I want a negotiated deal at the table because those are the ones that last.
Right.
So it's been 6 days. How are you feeling now about it? Well, let's see how he's feeling about it now, Mr. Grizzly.
I don't have the link.
You don't have the link.
Is this from the same video from earlier?
Yeah. The same video.
Oh, I did not know that. Sorry. I thought it was a new link. Okay, hang on just a second. We'll just put this up on the screen. Let's see what happens here.
Oh, no. I gave you the time.
Sir, obviously the two central premiers have some opinions about the Seaway strike. You want to have a chat with us. What's on your mind?
Yeah, no. The importance of the Seaway is not lost on me. I'd encourage the premiers to tell the parties how badly we need them to come to a deal. That is for sure. So, send that message loud and clear to the employer and to the union. We need a deal. We need them at the table. I'll be flying to the table after question period today. We need a deal. Need them at the table. Need a deal. Need a deal. Need a deal.
weather, as you well know, is a part of this. My recollection is the Seaway sort of shuts down in sections by about the new year.
Yeah.
So by my watch, that's about 2 months left of sailings.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a backlog. CBC has video of ships at Port Weller, ships at Port Colborne, ships taking shelter behind Long Point on Lake Erie. They're all, it's like Singapore out there. They're all parking up, and you know, things aren't getting through. So it's and then there's a backlog to clear. So isn't there a back to work at some point?
Back to work?
No. You're just gonna, like, even if everything
back
shuts
to work,
down.
back to work takes a lot more time than people think too.
Yeah.
It's not just through the House of Commons; it's through the Senate. I'm not entertaining that. I am not. BC sat out there for 2 weeks, watched those ships. It is tough, but we believe in the table. We believe in these parties reaching a deal. They're the only parties who can reach that deal. Reach the deal, because it is backing up. Grain needs to get through. A lot of other things that you may not think of that are really important, like salt, needs to get through. This is billions of dollars on the line. Get a deal. Get it at the table. I couldn't encourage the parties more. I'm flying out there now.
Is there, thinking of iron ore coming out of Septil,
Yeah.
others, is there a, you know, should all the ArcelorMittal, Stelco, everybody, should they be picking up the phones to?
Well, I can only imagine, you know, the pressure that the employer, the operator, and the workers must feel right now. And I'm laying on more. We got to get a deal. We got to get a deal.
Okay. Well, I think you've made yourself clear. Is there anything I've missed?
No.
Okay. Thank you for stopping.
Flying after QP.
Wow.
You remember when I said a while ago I heard an interview with him on the David Hurley, the Hurley Burley thing, and the guy was like speaking in full sentences and would just had this way about him that was completely engaging that I could see him as prime minister one day.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see his eyes get as big as Toonies as soon as the guy said back to work? It's like, back to work?
No,
And
no,
like,
no, no,
and
no.
he was already shaking his head no while he was asking this question. Like, no, never. And says pressure on the employer and the union. Well, what about Stelco? Yeah, I guess they are feeling some pressure, right?
Yeah. He genuinely
Yeah, I
seems
guess.
to care about people involved here.
Yes.
Not the corporations, the people.
Yes, I guess the employer is feeling some pressure, aren't they? As well as the union. But yes, our stuff is not getting there. Because, and your usual go-to, well, you know, we don't really need to negotiate. We don't really need to negotiate with the people. We just need to call our friends here up at there, and they'll send them back to work.
Yeah, that was not what I saw.
The labor minister is not playing that.
No, he's actually advocating for the people who rarely have a voice.
And by pointing to BC and saying, you know, we went to 2 weeks for that and it was very difficult, but we got the deal. So he just telegraphed, if you think the pressure is tough on you now, employers, after like 6 days or 7 days, wait till another 6 or 7, because he will wait 2 weeks. He's done it before. He'll do it again.
I think that's fascinating. I'm genuinely taken aback by this. Genuinely taken aback by it, because it was like a politician doing his job, representing his constituents.
Boom.
Not just his constituents, but the portfolio that he oversees. He's representing the people, not the corporations.
And the guy who wants to be prime minister is the guy that the people from the Canadian Federation of Business first run to get the back to work legislation.
That was truly revelatory.
And
Well,
I
the
was
look
so
on his face
I
was
was
back to work. No.
what the hell? He
That
looked
was
at him like he was
dismissed outright.
he looked at him like he was an alien for even suggesting it.
Well, and Linda's saying here, you know, he was making the point that both sides need to get to the negotiating table.
Yes.
in good faith.
Both
And was
sides.
making that. Yes. Yeah.
As opposed to just one.
Yes.
the employees need to be more reasonable and just it's like, it's like, yes, we've been negotiating in good faith since the beginning. I do not know why they will not accept this deal because they still can't eat. Maybe.
Well, and somebody else, well, it's going to eat into the profit margin of the corporations. I don't give a
Yeah.
shit. So what? What has the corp done for me? Oh, that's right. It's built its
Find a
wealth
way-
on the back of my labor.
Find a way to increase your productivity. Then maybe make better business decisions that don't result in you having to spend so much in legal fees to defend stuff that's indefensible, and maybe you'll make the money back.
Maybe not give stupid ass bonuses to people who've done nothing to actually earn them.
The money exists in your corporation to make that up if that's what your real concern is.
Mm-hmm. So
pay the people what they're worth, cut the actual fat. The people are not the fat.
They're not the fat. Got an interesting of tidbits I want to add to this conversation, talking about livable wages and versus minimum wages. Well, and I'm bringing the minimum wage in.
Mm-hmm.
So in the province of Ontario, starting on October 1st, it went from $15.50 an hour to $16.55. So that's $1.05 increase. It says the 6.8% increase in the minimum wage means up to $2,200 more in workers' pockets every year. The minimum wage has increased from $14.25 per hour to $16.55 an hour since 2020. It's a move in the right direction, but let's see what it was in November of 2022, so almost a full year ago, a living wage in the province of Ontario and moreover in the city of Ottawa was $19.60 an hour. In the GTA, it was $23.15 an hour. That's a year ago. I don't know what the living wage is today. So this minimum wage is still shy by a few dollars of you being able to actually have a life. And what is a living wage? A living wage reflects people need to earn to cover the actual costs of living in their community and draws on community-specific data to determine the expenses. Living wage employers voluntarily decide to pay a living wage and maintain their certification as new rates are calculated for their area. It's so a living wage is the hourly wage a worker needs to earn to cover their basic expenses and participate in their community. Now, to participate in your community, it doesn't mean I've paid rent, I've paid my hydro, I've paid my internet, these are all things you have to have today. You have to have them, period. Mm-hmm. You may use a Wi-Fi phone, so maybe you don't even have a shoe phone. Maybe you just have an internet connection at home and you use a Wi-Fi calling, which you can do you can pick up a cell phone for next to nothing, connect it to Wi-Fi and use Wi-Fi calling. I use Wi-Fi calling all the time. Mm-hmm. But you haven't eaten yet. You've paid the rent, you've paid the hydro, you've paid the internet bill. You haven't put food on your table. And oh my goodness, I need a new pair of shoes. I would like to be able to go out and have dinner once a year at least. Well, you can't do that on a minimum wage without going into debt to do so. A living wage means you can participate in your village village community while putting a couple of bucks aside and having all the bills paid. Mm-hmm. A living wage is a step to joining the middle class, of which I'm still not a member. I was the member of the middle class for about a year and a half in my 55 years on this planet. Mm-hmm. I'm working class. I'd like to get to that level of middle class where I can start to see my savings grow. Why do I have a little bit of savings now? Because I had to sell my car. It's the only reason I got a couple of bucks put aside. That's the only reason. Because the last few years, especially at the start of the pandemic, when I was asked to stay home for 2 months, we started out, I got a single CERB check, and then we were transferred to CEWS, which was the Canadian Employment Wage Subsidy. The federal government kicked in 75%, and they expect corporations and companies to kick in the extra 25% to bring us back up to a livable wage. I got 5% from my company. I was on 80% salary for 6 months, and I had no vehicle allowance at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Right after I had got a new vehicle. So
Yep.
I will never recover that money. And my savings got destroyed. I had to cash out my RSPs to keep afloat. I have things that I sent in to get repaired just before the pandemic. They called me, it's repaired, it's $1,300. They're still sitting there because I've not had the money to pick them up.
Mm-hmm.
Just, I have a living wage. I'd like to join the middle class so, I can get that item that's been sitting there for 3 years repaired, which I don't even know if they still have it. Maybe they've sold it for all I know.
Yeah. Yeah, right. And when it comes to that, it was announced this week that the Bank of Canada held its target rate at 5%. So they did not raise the interest rate, which is good. The next forecast, the next rate date is scheduled for December 6th. But one of the things that they're talking about specifically is wages, because what they're saying is that wages are increasing higher than inflation, and they got to tamp that down. Well, yes, but for a while, inflation was growing way faster than wages, so that's the reason why all these employees are striking
Mm-hmm.
to sort of make it up. So the bank is still concerned about wages. Wages are increasing at about 5%, and the most recent inflation numbers came in at 3.8%. So inflation was 2.8% in June, 4% in August, and 3.8% in September. So the Bank of Canada is saying that their higher interest rates are moderating inflation in many goods that people buy on credit, and this is spreading to services. But food inflation is easing from very high rates. However, in addition to elevated mortgage and interest costs, inflation in rent and other housing costs remains high. Near-term inflation expectations and corporate pricing behavior are normalizing only gradually, and wages are still growing around 4 to 5%. And the bank's preferred measure of core inflation is showing little downward momentum at the time. So they're saying that inflation is expected to average about 3.5% until through the middle of next year, before gradually easing closer to the 2% in 2025. None of that gives an indication when rates may lower, and because of the situation that's exploding in Israel and the Gaza, well, chances are that something could happen on any given day that would change that situation. With regard to the Canadian economy, the bank expects the economy to grow by 1.2% this year, 0.9% next year, and then up to 2.5% in 2025. So we won't actually hit actual recession, according to this. Now, that's with the Bank of Canada. Then we had the consumer price index, which is the inflation, which I mentioned had dropped from 4% to 3.8%. And of course, when it went up from 2.8 to 4% after the price of gas and energy went up because, well, Russia and Saudi Arabia decided that they were going to do another production cut. Well, then you had Pierre Poilievre all over TV and all over your internet going, see, inflation's going back up again. It's all because of Trudeau. But he didn't say, hey, inflation's down 0.2% now because of Trudeau. So again, he's a cartoon. But yes, 3.8%. This according to Statistics Canada, there was a year-over-year increase in gasoline prices, which rose at a faster pace in September, up 7.5% compared with August, which was just only up 0.8% due to a base year effect. Excluding gasoline, the CPI rose 3.7% in September, following a 4.1% increase in August. So the main CPI is down on the core CPI. The core CPI always strips away volatile things to give you a number. So that one is decreased 0.4%. Price growth for groceries continued to slow in September, but remained above headline inflation, rising 5.8% year over year, following a 6.9% increase in August. So this is actually good news for Canadians in that the consumer, I would say, when the inflation was dropping in the early days, food inflation was still rising or not dropping as fast as in the main inflation rate. Now the main inflation rate has only dropped 0.2% between August and September, but for groceries that has dropped a full 1.1%. So now, of course, that doesn't mean that prices are lowering. It just means that they're not increasing as fast as they were. But that is, we learned during COVID the concept of bending the curve, and bending the curve can be used to apply to a lot of things, like, for example, reducing our GHG emissions. We have to sort of first bend the curve before we're going to see a decrease. It's the same thing with inflation. You want to bring the curve down, and then it starts to increase. So we have the CPI curve, and then we have the core inflation curve, and then we have the, inflation including energy, and then food inflation curves and the housing inflation curves, and they're all different ones, and they're all traveling at different speeds. But now the food one is coming down at a steeper rate than the main one, so they're catching up, hopefully, because there's still a 2% difference between the CPI and food inflation. So food inflation is still higher, but it's only by 2% rather than by 5 or 6 or incredible amount. In the food area, deceleration stemmed from year-over-year slowdowns in meat, 4.4%, dairy products, 4%, and coffee and tea, 2.7%, which were mainly driven by base year effects. Large monthly gains in September, when grocery prices increased at the fastest pace in 41 years, fell out of the 12-month movements and put downward pressure on the index. In contrast, prices for fresh food, 3%, fish, 5.1%, bakery products, 8%, and edible fats and oils, 14.8%, increased at a faster pace. So, cheaper meat, cheaper dairy, cheaper coffee and tea, more expensive fruit, fish, bakery products, and fats and oils. Consumers are paying less for airfares, if that's something that you can afford. That's down 21.1% year-over-year basis. So that's a significant savings there, or significant decrease, I should say. And then in terms of the regional highlights, prices increased in all provinces in September, but rose at a slower pace compared with August in 6 provinces. That's about the main information that we have there. So at least for food, which is the main thing because we all got to eat, prices are down. Prices are also down for furniture and household appliances. Inflation, I shouldn't say prices, I should say inflation is down, even though this does say prices. For furniture and household appliances. So that's if you need to replace them, some things, and you've been holding off, now seems to be a little bit of a better time to tackle that type of thing. Along with that, we have had some labor statistics data come in, and employment rose by 64,000 jobs in September, following an increase of 40,000 in August. The employment rate rose 0.1% to 62%, offsetting a decline in the previous month. So that's the total proportion of the population aged 15 and older who are employed, which is different than the unemployment rate. That's the employment rate, the number of people who are employed. The unemployment rate was unchanged in September and stood at 5.5% for the third consecutive month. This was more jobs than were expected. It was almost 3 times the jobs that were expected for the month, which was some really good data. And additionally, there was data that came out just recently, I believe yesterday, from the United States with regards to their economy. And because, as we often say in Canada, if the United States catches a cold, then, we come down with pneumonia. Well, when their economy is doing better, then it usually brings us up. And in the United States, for example, while our GDP increased by just over 1%, in the July to September period, that quarter, GDP in the United States expanded 4.9%, more than double the 2.1% of the second quarter. Consumer spending has expanded to its strongest quarterly showing since the final months of 2021. So that would be a lifting tide that would lift our boats. And that's probably the reason why we're not dipping into a slight recession as maybe had been called for. And that the GDP numbers for Canada are expected to be 0.9% next year rather than recessionary. And it might just be because of the influence of the United States there, because they're firing on all cylinders, and they have been increasing interest rates at a pace similar to ours, to what that we've been doing. So I don't know if that might create another situation where the Fed might decide to increase rates, and we might have an interest rate gap. Creating, which then affects the value of the dollar and then our purchasing power. If the United States economy keeps on going on gangbusters, and if the Fed decides to keep raising interest rates, that could pull the Bank of Canada to raise theirs to not create such a gap. We will see. But overall, it's positive data. And though not everybody is feeling it yet, the hope is that by the time we would go to an election in 2 years, that people would start seeing it and feeling it and the difference. And it might be just one of those, there are certain things that only time can do kind of things. And you just got to let it work through. But it does seem that things are going in the right direction, even though the average person isn't feeling it, because, of course, they're renewing mortgages at rates that are much higher than they were paying before. And therefore, the amount of disposable income they have available becomes a whole lot sharper. And then if you have higher than average inflation going on at the same time as that, you start to feel the squeeze. It doesn't take many months before you do. And even if you're someone that can afford it because you have the margin, you still see how less far your dollar goes. Let's put it that way. Mr. Grizzly, do you happen to have anything?
I do have a few things. I'm putting some stuff in the chat here because while you've been chatting, I've been looking up some facts and figures. In Ottawa, sorry, I had to clear my throat. And these numbers are from 2022. So it's increased since then. In Ottawa, a single person estimated monthly costs are $1,539.30, not including rent. As of October 2023, the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment in Ottawa is $1,925. This is a 13% increase compared to the previous year. So let's do those numbers. 1,539.30 plus 1,925. How much does that come out to? That's just to keep a roof over your head and average costs living in the city. Now multiply that number times 12, and what figure do you come up with? Well, I can tell you something. That is a lot of money for the average person. Let's just do the numbers, shall we? So it's, what did I say? 1,539.30 plus 1,925.00. That's $3,464.30 times 12 months is $41,571. That's what it cost to live in Ottawa if you moved here today. And remember that average single person monthly costs is from 2022. So these numbers aren't even live as we speak. So if you live in Ottawa and you're earning $50,000 a year, you're starving. If you're earning less than $90,000 a year in Ottawa as a single person, you are hurting. It's a simple. Yeah, I did have that. What you just sent me, sir, I did have that. That was what I got the Ottawa and Toronto numbers for from 2022. $23.15 an hour in the GTA is a living wage, and in Ottawa it was $19.60, and that was in 2022. Those numbers have definitely changed since that time. I can guarantee you that because everything has gone way up since then. So if you're looking at, what did I say, monthly costs, a yearly cost is $41,571.60. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's all costs in. You need to earn $90,000 because knock 30% off of that
Mm-hmm.
for federals, right?
Yeah.
Then take another 1,000 away. There's not a lot of money left to live on.
Yeah. Indeed.
And I don't earn anywhere near 90,000.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, because I'm in a rent-controlled apartment that I've been here for going on 13 years now, my rent is affordable. But my rent is getting a little bit better, even though it increases every year by a couple of percentage. It's 2%, I think, or 1.5. I think. I can't remember what the maximum is. But my rent is actually going to decrease when it goes up in January because I'm giving up my parking space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I've sold my car.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something that I needed to do because each month I was falling further behind. And as one gets older, that's not the direction you want to be in financially.
No.
You don't want to be falling further behind as you get older because your working years are less and less. Now, I'm going to need less as I get older. Certainly, that goes without question. But there are still things that need to be taken care of on a monthly basis. And provided I have no catastrophic injury or illness, which could also add to monthly costs. It's a little bleak. But Canada isn't broken. And we have people like Minister Seamus O'Regan who actually want to empower us to have better lives.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking through the chat comments here. When Kit Cassie was saying it costs $14,000 from carbon stuff to run a family farm, she also added that might change if the Senate passes the amendment that allows for relief on natural gas and propane for grain dryers and buildings. Which, again, that's what I'm saying. Like taking the thing, we have 5 or 6 years. Let's make some adjustments for regions and for circumstances to make sure that this policy, is optimized and doesn't have any perverse effects. I like this. I like this. Kit Saucy says, many in Atlantic Canada feel unheard by the federal government, no matter who's in power. That is very true. It is a region that is very much taken for granted.
Oh,
Very
yes.
much taken for granted politically. And it shouldn't be the case, but hey.
It is.
Yeah, I never understood that. Just like letting a region, just taking it go, letting it for granted and letting it go, and then realizing, oh, we don't have them anymore. It's like dance with the one who brought you. Rule number 1. Right? Man. Let's see. What else do we have here in the chat here from the kids here? All right. I think that's about it for now. There's other stuff later. You guys have been really, really, really busy. Wow. There's a lot of comments in the chat. Great conversations. I'll keep scrolling them later on. I sent you a link, Mr. Grizzly, for something because there's something interesting that happened in the States. I think you all heard that there was another mass shooting in Maine. And it's
Jake discussed that on his show yesterday.
Yeah, the 565th mass shooting in the United States and the deadliest one this year. At last time I heard, 18 people had died, 13 were wounded, and many names weren't made public yet because they had only identified 10 of the 18 at that time. And we normally get the same parade of thoughts and prayers and la-da-da. But something interesting happened yesterday. Somebody decided to say not the usual thing. And I would like to put it up for the kids to hear it, Mr. Grizzly, if you would.
I don't have anything.
It's in the private chat. I sent you a link.
This, which one?
https:/x.com ACYN.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see it. Hang on a
Yep.
sec here. Just a second. Oh, okay. Yeah, give me Give
Yeah.
me 2 seconds here while I get that up. Sorry, I was looking. My apologies.
Okay, no worries.
That's why I was confused. I get confused easily. I'm old and feeble some days.
Now, this is a congressman. His name is Jared Golden. I believe he's a congressman for the state of Maine, of course. And like I said, he's Republican. And, well, let's just say the Republicans typically have a script when this type of thing happens, and he didn't follow the script.
Let's have a watch.
Now, we could be in full control among many other misjudgments. I have opposed efforts to ban deadly weapons of war like the assault rifle used to carry out this crime. The time has now come for me to take responsibility for this failure, which is why I now call on the United States Congress to ban assault rifles like the one used by the sick perpetrator of this mass killing in my hometown of Lewiston, Maine. For the good of my community, I will work with any colleague to get this done in the time that I have left in Congress. To the people of Lewiston, my constituents throughout the 2nd District, to the families who lost loved ones, and to those who have been harmed, I ask for forgiveness and support as I seek to put an end to these terrible shootings. In the days to come, I will give everything I have to support this community's recovery. Thank you.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
Hopefully we don't get dinged for that.
Why would we?
It's MSNBC. There's a thing with YouTube where you have to say, this is never aired on U.S. television. So I have to uncheck that box.
Oh, okay.
See, because we show lots of CBC clips and parliamentary clips and things like that. I think if you show a CPAC clip, no problem, because that's public domain.
Yeah.
But this is not public domain, so I'm going to have to uncheck that box so we don't get dinged.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
But I assume news clippings are fair usage.
Mm.
Because, I mean,
Jake, I got dinged for it once before.
Your old pal Jake uses them all the time.
Yeah, I know, but he lives in the United States. We don't.
Okay. Interesting.
We'll see what happens. I'll uncheck the box.
Okay. Yeah, this this young man has decided to start a new example rather than guns don't kill people, people kill people, and don't, because I made a mistake and I will do my best to try to fix it now. It's a big thing. And yeah, I'm like I said, it's just something I didn't expect, and I felt I should show it because New Brunswick borders Maine. Canadian authorities are also on alert because there's still a shelter and order place going on in Maine, at least as of 6 a.m. this morning when I was listening to the news, because this guy is on the run, and they haven't
still on the loose. Yeah.
So Canadian officials are monitoring the New Brunswick border to make sure as well. So both nations are working together on this. And it's really interesting because you, when things like this happen, you see a whole bunch of memes, right, for and against, gun control. And I saw one that was really interesting. And I was like, funny that the same people who say guns don't kill people, people kill people, believe that books make you gay.
Yeah. Funny how that works, isn't it?
I was like, yeah. And with that, Kit Cassie actually brings us some good news. Have a little faith for people waking up and stepping up. The alt-right evangelical anti-LGBT candidates tried to get 2 seats on school boards and lost miserably.
Good.
Here in Brandon, Manitoba.
Way to go, Brandon.
Woohoo!
I have a
Canadians are essentially decent and good people.
That's right. once
Yeah,
they
definitely
realize what's
matter.
happening, we don't always know what's happening, right? Because this is done in the shadows, quietly, so nobody notices until,
And be
uh-oh.
and people are being told that the thing that's being done is different than what's being done. No, we're just defending parental rights. No, you're not.
No, you're not.
Because there are plenty of parents that have absolutely no problem with their kids doing that, and you're not defending their rights.
Yeah.
You're only
Funny how that
defending the
works.
rights of the ones that have problems with their kids doing that.
Yeah. What about, I thought you're supposed to protect everybody equally, right? Here's something about the gun lobby from Warren Burger, Supreme Court Chief Justice. I'm going to put this on the screen and read it. The gun lobby's interpretation of the Second Amendment is one of the greatest pieces of fraud. I repeat the word fraud on the American people by special interest groups that I have ever seen in my lifetime. The real purpose of the Second Amendment was to ensure that state armies, the militia, would be maintained for the defense of the state. The very language of the Second Amendment refutes any argument that it was intended to guarantee every citizen an unfettered right to the kind of weapon he or she desires. He's right.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
He's right.
He is.
And again, I don't know if you saw the clip or the show. Jon Stewart confronted, I'll say, a congressman, or was it a senator for Arizona?
Yes.
Or was it was Colorado. And he insisted that rights shall not be infringed upon. It was okay. Should we provide safety for schools and children? Of course we should. What is the number one killer of children in America today? I don't know. Yes, you do. It's guns. Guns. More than all other things combined. Not fires, not car accidents, not
cancer, not
cancer. Guns is the number one killer of children in the United States of America today. But my rights.
But again, that's the thing I keep on saying. It's like your rights. But the Second Amendment right, above all the rights, right? There's a First Amendment.
Everything else.
There's a second right. But above all of those, right? The we believe these things to be self-evident, the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. The exercise of the Second Amendment is definitely getting in the way of people's right to life.
Well, and again,
if you have no
well-regulated
life,
militia, right?
right,
Well-regulated militia.
Yes. And if you don't have no right to life, then your right to liberty
is taken away.
And it's kind of hard to pursue happiness if you got shrapnel in your leg.
Yeah.
Happiness runs at a certain rate. If you can't run as fast or faster, then you can't. The pursuit's kind of moot, isn't it? You ain't never going to catch it. It's like there's the right to bear arms is in direct conflict with the right of a child to not lose their life for committing the cardinal sin of trying to acquire an education, or your right for you committing the cardinal sin of going to the grocery store for milk. There are competing rights here. You have a right to go shop for milk without getting gunned down.
That's right.
Right. And again, same thing on the parental, even if there was a parental rights thing, let's assume, out of the humor, there is the right to the child to have deeply, deeply personal information about who they are as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Their being, their overall health, that's why, for example, there's doctor-patient confidentiality. That's why there's lawyer-client confidentiality. That's why when you go to public health for an STD test, because they don't advertise that you went, or told everybody that you know that you went. That's why when you decide you want to leave your abusive partner, the shelter you go to doesn't call your abusive partner and say, "Hey, are you aware? This is something you should know because this will change your life." We do it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Things that other people, somebody could say, "Hey, I have a right to know. You got pregnant.
you do not want the child. That's your decision. There is no legal requirement for you to tell the person that participated with you in getting you pregnant that you're going to do this. But what if that was a law? Well, you have to tell the person. You have to get their permission first. What if what if the law was if you were male, every time you went to the pharmacy and you had your Viagra subscription booted up, your wife had to be informed of it.
And it was announced in the store.
Yes.
Over the PA.
Yes.
Mr. Smith, your prescription for Viagra is ready if you want to come and pick it up at the counter.
And then you're sitting your wife going, why did you need to refill your prescription? We haven't done it in 2 months.
Are you stepping out? No,
There's a
it's
lot of
just making sure everything still works.
There's a lot of things that we do that people in our lives, somebody could say, have a right to know. Do we really want to be giving that permission? Do we really want the state to be the ones that's determining what it is about your own little secret garden? Because we all have one. That other people have a right to know because it's affecting them. This is not good. This is not a good law. So the right of a parent to be involved in their child's life versus the right to a child to have some privacy about things that are super intimate. Because the child is an individual person.
Well, it makes me
unique,
think.
independent, under the law.
Have you ever read the book The Circle by Dave Eggers or seen the film?
No.
The Circle. The film deviates from the book a bit, but there's a line in the film that says, and it's in the book as well, secrets are lies. And I agree with that statement.
Mm-hmm.
However, something to consider is that privacy is also a thing that you're entitled to. It's only a secret if people know you're keeping it. If people don't know, it's just a private matter.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a discernible difference between the two.
Mm-hmm.
You have a right to privacy in this country. And I like to say privacy because it makes me sound British.
I mean, like, I can understand if, but it's like, even if you have a secret, it's like, you don't, the thing is, like, if somebody asks you something and you don't want to say, like, I'm sorry, I'm not prepared to share that information.
That's fair.
Why is that? It's just something I'm not prepared to share right now. Because you don't have to lie. You just have to say, that's something I don't want to share.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's not information that's yours to know. And again, like, somebody asks you an indiscreet question. Oh, that's interesting. Why would you want to know? And see what happens. Sometimes when you ask people why it is they want to know, they realize, oh, I actually have no business asking this, do I? Oops, I just put my foot in it, didn't I? Yeah, you did. But it's a nice social cue that if someone is minimally self-aware, they'll pick up. I was like, oh, okay, I'll take a step back. Thank you. Oh, man. Okay, let's see. What else do we have in the news for you? Because there has been a lot. Oh, yes. It seems that according to Bloomberg, just in passing, this one's just in passing, Taylor Swift is now a billionaire.
Not surprised.
Yep, she crossed in at 1.1 billion. So, you know who may not be a billionaire, though? Donald Trump. Wouldn't it be something if Donald Trump had never actually ever really been a billionaire, not even once? And now Taylor Swift is, especially after that recent campaign of everybody saying that she's ugly and has no talent.
Yeah, and she
Not only is she ugly, not only is she not ugly and she has more talent, but she's a better person. It seems that she's better with money than you guys are too.
well, and she is self-made. Now, some people may argue that, well, she comes from an upper middle class family. Okay, so she had a head start.
Yeah, but she upper middle class is not billionaire. From she started upper middle class, but she went here.
Yeah. Well, and that's a consideration too. Most wealthy people start ahead of everybody else. They start the
Yes.
100-meter race at the 50-meter
Absolutely.
line, right?
Yes.
Generational wealth. If you come from an upper middle class family, chances are real good you're going to also fall into that same category.
But she
If you
stood.
surpass that, hey,
But she got up at the starting line for a 100-meter race and decided, you know what, I'm going to run a marathon.
yes, indeed. No, good for her. Good for her. Well, also, the thing is, she's incredibly generous too. You know
Yes.
that, eh?
Yes. Yes.
She does things in the background,
Yep.
in the dark, and then people make light of it. And she's
Yes.
like, I didn't want that to happen. She doesn't want people to know about her. I wouldn't qualify it as philanthropy as much as she rewards everybody on her crew gets a massive bonus.
She recognizes what people are worth.
Well, and they go, and so when they get their bonus, they also get a document with the bonus that says, here's who you need to contact immediately for tax purposes so that you're not dinged. And somebody says, well, she's just getting a tax write-off. Yeah, she is. So what?
Yeah.
You do realize that when the corporate tax rate in America was at
She
the
did.
90 percentile mark back in the 50s under Dwight D. Eisenhower, who was president at the time, that corporate tax of 90%, that rate, was taxed only if your corporation earned more than $10 million a year, which was a lot of money at the time. And of that 90%, what companies would do instead of having to pay 90% tax, they would do things like reinvest the funds into the company, reinvest it into their employees, create things like programs where if you were, say, a car manufacturer, you had a specialized loan program at 0% interest rates so you could buy a car. They would create things like educational programs. They would reinvest the money into the company to lower their marginal tax rate. What do you think she's doing?
Mhm.
She's investing in her people to lower her tax rate.
Yeah. She
it's
didn't write the tax rules.
No,
She's just playing within them.
just playing well within them.
Same thing that the CEO of all those big car companies and oil companies say as well.
Mhm.
I believe it was Donald Trump himself who said, well, I don't pay taxes because I'm smart.
I guarantee you Taylor pays taxes.
Oh, yes.
And not to mention the fact that every time her tour stops into a city, the amount of money it generates in that city is unbelievable.
Yeah.
She's
As
doing,
well.
what, 10 shows in Toronto?
6,
in
I
a
believe.
year from now.
Yeah. Yep.
Is it 6?
I think it's
Yeah, it's
6.
over a 2-week period.
Over
I
a
know
2-week
too,
period.
right now.
She's there over 10 days, though.
Yes.
So the whole tour is there over 10 days. So yeah, that's a big deal because unless like a lot of people from those tour are actually like flying out of Toronto for 3 or 4 days to go spend time with family and then coming back.
Well, they might because it's
They
November.
might. Yeah.
You know.
But unless that's happening, they're staying there for those few days and taking some downtime and doing some touristy thing and eating in the restaurants and staying in the hotels. And who knows, maybe they fly their family members in to come and visit for a little bit. Right?
Yeah.
So there's lots of economic return there. Lots of economic return. In Manitoba, new Premier Wapkanu formally apologized to the families of 2 Indigenous women who were suspected to have had their, unfortunately, trigger warning, murdered corpses dumped in a landfill. Donna Bartlett, whose granddaughter is one of the victims, pleaded to the Premier, my granddaughter, could you please help me bring her home? And he told her, we're going to try. And that work is starting now. There was a feasibility study that's concluded that the search could take 3 years and cost up to $184 million. Winnipeg City Council is also calling on Ottawa and the Manitoba government to fund a search of the landfill. It's the right move
Mm-hmm.
It's the right move. It needs to be done. Um, and Mr. Canoe made the point that nobody should have to experience this type of thing. So,
Agreed.
yeah, it definitely is the right decision, and this was done in a wonderful way. Meeting with the families individually to let them know that he's not guaranteeing. She said, "Like, bring my
Mm-hmm.
daughter home." He says, "We're going to try, but at least we're going to try."
Which is the reasonable thing to
Yes,
say, because there's no way to know that they can,
exactly,
right?
exactly. Because it would be so easy to do that, to have that moment there. Because don't worry, Miss Bartlett, we will, we will. It's like, no, we're going to try. Yes. And considering that the last government wouldn't, good thing.
It's definitely the
Yes.
right direction.
Now there's a piece of news that I am not happy about, but I'm so poorly placed to speak on it. Uh,
Is this about Buffy?
yes. It's
I have a statement from her.
okay, and we will read that. But let's give a little context. It seems that the Fifth Estate has done an investigation into Buffy St. Marie's claims of being Canadian and Indigenous by birth. Uh, Seems that they found some stuff, genealogical documents and some of her own family statements that contradict her story. Uh,
Why are they doing this?
that's the thing.
Why the fuck are they
That's the
doing
thing. That's the
this?
thing that I'm wondering. Now, I understand. I understand the whole fraud thing and misclaiming. Um, but it's not as if she hasn't lived her life as if, right?
Mhm.
Um, I also find it hard to believe that at the time that she chose to become, at the time in which
Mhm.
she became famous, that she sat there and she thought, you know what? You know what my ticket to fame is? Pretending I'm Indigenous
Yes.
in that era.
Yeah.
Um,
She's
yeah.
82. Come on.
So I have a bit of problem. Now I understand. Yes, if something's not true, something's not true, and truth is truth, and like, but uh, this is just like why. But according to this, it says that since her, and this is quoting from CBC here, since her career took off in the 1960s, Buffy St. Marie has claimed to be Cree-born on the Piapot First Nation in Saskatchewan. She has said she was adopted out of the community by an American couple, Albert and Winifred St. Marie, and raised in Massachusetts. Later, the story goes, she returned to Piapot and was adopted into the community. She has built a high-profile career around this claim, but her niece Heidi St. Marie says Buffy's ancestry story is an elaborate fabrication. She's clearly born in the she's clearly born in the United States. She's clearly not Indigenous or Native American. Buffy's birth certificate obtained by the CBC says that she was born in Stoneham, Massachusetts, to white parents Albert and Winifred St. Marie, the very people she says adopted her. Maria Sagarino is the Stoneham town clerk. She says, I can say with absolute 100% certainty that this is the original birth certificate. Métis lawyer Jean Tay, who is an expert on false Indigenous ancestry claims, she says Buffy's story follows what has become a familiar pattern in Canada. Quote, she's talented, she's wonderful. Did she have to do it in red face? That's the question. And I would argue that she didn't have to. Buffy St. Marie declined a CBC request for an interview. Her lawyer suggests the birth certificate may not be real and says Buffy has never misled the public about her ancestry.
No, she never has.
Mm-hmm. You probably, I have like one little statement of that's what she said, but I think you have the full statement, so I will let you read
I
it,
do.
Mr. Grizzly.
Just a second. I'll bring it up on the screen here and I'll read it out to the kids and cubs. This is from Madame St. Marie, Buffy St. Marie. It is with great sadness and a heavy heart that I am forced to respond to deeply hurtful allegations that I expect will be reported in the media soon. Last month, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation contacted me to question my identity and the sexual assault I experienced as a child. To relive those times and revisit questions I made peace with decades ago has been traumatic. But I know I owe it to those I love and those who support me to respond. I am proud of my Indigenous American identity and the deep ties I have to Canada and my Piapat family. Wow, I had our time. What I know about my Indigenous ancestry, I learned from my growing up mother, who was part Mi'kmaq, and my own research later in life. My mother told me many things, including that I was adopted and that I was Native. But there was no documentation, as was common for Indigenous children born in the 1940s. Later in my life, as an adult, she told me some things I have never shared out of respect for her that I hate sharing now, including that I may have been born on the wrong side of the blanket, in quotation. This was her story to tell, not mine. As a young adult, I was adopted by Emile Piapat, son of Chief Piapat, Treaty 4 adhesion signatory, and Clara Starblanket Piapat, daughter of Chief Starblanket, Treaty 4 signatory, in accordance with Cree law and customs. They were kind, loving, and proud to claim me as their own. I love my Piapat family, and I am so lucky to have them in my life. I have always struggled to answer questions about who I am. For a long time, I tried to discover information about my background. Through that research, what became clear, and what I've always been honest about, is that I don't know where I'm from or who my birth parents were, and I will never know, which is why to be questioned in this way today is painful, both for me and for my two families I love so dearly. My Indigenous identity is rooted in a deep connection to a community, which has had a profound role in shaping my life and my work. For my entire life, I have championed Indigenous and Native American causes when nobody else would, or had the platform to do so. I am proud to have been able to speak up for Indigenous issues. I have always tried to bridge the gaps between communities and educate people to live in love and kindness. This is my truth. And while there are many things I do not know, I have been proud to honestly share my story throughout my life. Painfully, the CBC has also forced me to relive and defend my experience as a survivor of sexual abuse, which I endured at the hands of my brother, as well as another family member, who I have never publicly named. I could never forget these violations. It is something I have lived with all my life. Speaking about my experience is difficult, and although I have shared privately, I have rarely done so publicly. I've spoken up because I know others cannot. And to have this questioned and sensationalized by Canada's public broadcaster is appalling. While these questions, I know they will also hurt those I love, my family, my friends, and all those who have seen themselves in my story. All I can say is what I know to be true. I know who I love, I know who loves me, and I know who claims me. I may not know where I was born, but I know who I am. Buffy St. Marie. I mean, why did they chose to do this now? Why did the CBC do this? Who was the one who greenlit that story? I know what we should do. What purpose does this serve? What purpose does it serve?
Truth, honesty, sunlight. She's a fraud. And it's like, no.
Hasn't she done good her entire life?
Yeah, but let's talk about something, right? I mention frequently enough on the show that there is Indigenous blood coursing through my veins.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but I do not claim anything.
No.
Because I was not raised a day in the culture.
Right.
I also, the only reason I know this, not because I had a DNA test, because my mom told me. And my dad told me. My mom told me many stories, often of her grandmother, who was half Indigenous. So even if I wanted to claim something, there's too many generations back for me. But but told me stories of her, like, sitting on the porch with her pipe in the walking rocking chair, and like this, and how much she learned from her. Because on my father's side, when I went to my father and I asked, what are we? Because I wanted to find we were black from where, because I wanted to know what our black story was. He looked at me and said, Mi'kmaq. And then at my dad's funeral a few years later, I met my Uncle Garnet for the first time, and I saw that he was very, very red-faced, and it's like, oh, okay. I guess we do. But I don't know from where and when and who, so I don't claim status. I also have a friend named Judy who is as Jewish as they come
Mhm.
and has lived her entire life as an adult advocating for Indigenous people. Yes. And she has been, I believe the word she uses, adopted Unga into a Lakota family.
Okay.
She doesn't, not as a child, but just in recognition of all work. Like, yes, we consider you one of us. Now, she doesn't go around telling people that she's Indigenous, but she is extremely proud of having been adopted Unga into a Lakota family.
Mhm.
Extremely proud. And in everything that she does, that pride shows. And she has the respect of the community. So I don't.
This is a good question from Mr. Cal. Is this their way, as in the CBC, to give the impression they're not liberal propaganda, go after one of North America's greatest activists and musicians? Interesting question.
Could be.
I don't know. I'm just, to say I'm flabbergasted is an understatement. Why now?
Yeah, Kit PNC Bio's got it. Who thought this was appropriate at the CBC? They're hoping to Rachel Dolezal Buffy? Gross. This would not be Rachel Dolezal.
Not even close. Come on. Look at Buffy St. Marie. You're going to try and convince me she's not Indigenous? Come on. And again, why would somebody choose to pretend to be Indigenous in the 50s onward? It makes absolutely no sense. Sure, today, being Indigenous has a certain spotlight shone upon it because of the good works that are being done today in 2023. And again, it's not exactly still the spotlight everybody wants all the time either.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get to have the anonymous white cishet male privilege. You don't get that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why they are doing this.
Neither do I. I also, because I wasn't quite sure exactly what it meant, I went to look up the expression "born on the wrong side of the blanket."
I know what it means.
Okay, I didn't know, which born of out of wedlock.
Mm-hmm.
So, in other words, I'm guessing her mother told her that her adoptive father may not be her biological father.
I don't know.
I mean, not her biological.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, again. So yeah, but I just don't. Papers can be fake so easily. I think, again, right, and this is another thing too. Papers can be fake so easily. I like to think her birth parents gave her up for adoption, knowing that she may have been taken away to a residential school and they could do nothing about it. Back in those days, we weren't as meticulous about paperwork.
Mm-hmm. Especially when it came to Indigenous people.
So, adopted, brought across the country, and yes, we're going to register her birth. Here's her birth certificate. I mean, the saying that this is an authentic birth certificate might be yes, but is it the actual certificate of her birth?
Yes.
Or is it just, well, she's in the United States now. She's going to be a citizen. She needs papers, so we need to get her something. Back then. Yeah, we've adopted her. Here's our papers. It says he adopted. Okay, we'll write a birth certificate. I, I, I'm, yeah, I'm with you. Like,
What purpose does this serve?
that's the thing. I don't understand the purpose that it serves, and I don't understand the
Why does somebody
like.
need this to happen now? I
Yeah,
don't get it. I
yeah,
don't get it.
I don't get it either. But yeah, that one just like as soon as I heard it yesterday, I'm like, oh come on.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, of course we don't want the people that we've to find out that the people that we've grown up with and that we've come to love, whatnot, are frauds. But cl-
I know.
clearly, when you have people, and she is far from the only one who probably doesn't know where she comes from
Yeah,
within the
especially from
indigenous
that time
community
frame.
from that time frame. I mean, what do you want? People can only do the best they can with what they have.
You got to remember, a lot of people were born in rural areas of Canada in the 40s. Canada was a pretty rural country back then. We only had a few metropolitan population centers, and in the 1940s, Ottawa was only about 200,000 people, which would have been considered a big city at the time. Montreal was, well, Montreal. Toronto was, I don't know if there was 1 million people in Toronto at that time. It might have been close. Nothing like today, of course. And
Mhm.
Vancouver was actually kind of a small town then compared to today. Calgary and Edmonton were not big. Sure, they were cities. They were not big cities. Many people born in rural areas at that time were done so with midwives in homes, and there was no recording of their birth, no official recording of their birth. So trying to get a birth certificate back then, in a lot of cases, that just didn't exist. That's why so many people had a hard time. People born in that era had a hard time trying to get a passport at one point in time because they couldn't prove who they were. Like,
Hmm.
like, where's your birth certificate? I don't have one. What do you mean you don't have one? I was born on a farm in northern Saskatchewan in 1941. There were other concerns at the time, like keeping the farm going. You know? Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. I think the last story I want to do for the day is our about our favorite. Well, maybe not our, but my favorite American congressman. Not favorite because I think he's amazing, just because he's absolutely the gift that keeps giving. Yes,
Buttigieg or
my friend.
Fetterman?
No. Hey there, Georgie girl.
Oh, Santos.
Yes. Yes, you are indicted, fancy free. Do 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 do. Yeah. Um Seems that Georgie is having a couple of problems because on October 10th, he found out that he was hit with more criminal charges. Um, he already had an indictment, I think that had 10 or 11 charges, if I'm not mistaken, but a superseding indictment filed in federal court in Central Islip, New York, charged the embattled Long Island congressman and his former treasurer, Nancy Marks, with falsely telling the Federal Election Commission that their family members had made significant financial contributions. And this superseding indictment has 23 counts to go on top of the ones he already had. The false reports made it appear as if Santos' campaign had raised at least $250,000 from outside donors in a single quarter, the threshold to qualify for financial and logistical support from the Republican Party, prosecutors said. Santos also told the FEC that he had made a $500,000 loan to his campaign when he had just $8,000 in his bank accounts at the time.
Interesting.
This is from Reuters, at least. Marks, the other person that was in the indictment, pleaded guilty last week to a conspiracy charge last week. So that would have been in early October, based on the time of this article. Santos, 35, pleaded not guilty in May to a 13-count indictment charging him with defrauding prospective political supporters by laundering funds to pay for his personal expenses, illegally receiving unemployment benefits while he was employed, and lying to the House of Representatives about his assets. The 35-year-old political newcomer has pleaded not guilty and resisted calls to resign for lying about his resume. He is free on $500,000 bail. The indictment, which was unsealed on Tuesday, the 10th of October, accused Santos of using the credit card information of people who had already donated to his campaign to make additional contributions and in some cases transfer funds into his own personal account. So I'm just going to take an cash advance on this credit card number that you gave me, and I'm going to just take that little money and put it into my account, and nobody will ever be able to trace it. He's not really good at this, is he? It's just... and it seems that he's in a court today as well, because on a whole other set of charges, I think. So, yeah. The new indictment describes how Santos allegedly used one donor's credit card repeatedly without the donor's knowledge, charging $15,800 to his campaign and related political committees. In the following months, prosecutors alleged Santos tried to make $44,800 in unauthorized charges using the same donor's information. Yeah, because when you your credit card bill statement comes in and says, well, $15,800, wow. Gee, that grocery one cost a lot.
Mm-hmm.
People will tend to notice that.
You think?
Prosecutors also allege that Santos and his former campaign treasurer Nancy Marks agreed to falsify his campaign finance reports in order to hit fundraising benchmarks and bolster his campaign. So in order to access those extra services that the Republican Party would do for him if he showed that he was able to raise $500,000, well, he acquired all of those fraudulently too, because he never actually raised the $500,000.
Well.
The original indictment against Santos accused him of wire fraud, money laundering, theft of public funds, and making materially false statements to the House of Representatives. Altogether, Santos is now charged with 36 criminal counts, to which he says he's not guilty, and that he'll keep running even though nobody likes him, and that he's going to be primaried, and he really has a fat chance of winning because, I mean, he's a Republican in New York. So, I mean, already that's tough enough. And, well, it seems like he lies like he breathes. So I would be very surprised if he actually gets reelected. But, you know, bless her heart, she's going to try. I just, I don't get these types. I don't, I mean, clearly the Trump thing sent a message. Hey, just say you're whoever you are. And I mean, it's kind of funny that we're actually talking about these two stories back to back, Buffy St. Marie, and just say you are whoever you are. And I mean, Donald Trump said he was a billionaire.
Mm-hmm.
We never really proved that. Andrew Scheer tried to make us believe that all along he was entirely a Canadian citizen, and somewhere along the way was an insurance salesman.
Yeah, none of those were true.
Andrew Scheer was actually George Santos before there was George Santos. He even racked up $700,000 to $900,000 in expenses from his party.
Mm.
Andrew Scheer was literally George Santos before there was George Santos.
Yes. Unbelievable, but there you are.
So when you see people like, I'm sure that nobody in the state saw Andrew Scheer other than Mike Ronan, because, I mean, it's not like he actually rated. But when you see people like Trump, they're like, yeah, just say there's corruption and my people will do the rest. Just say that there's an investigation and we'll take it from there. We'll just fill the arena with whatever, and who's going to check, really? Well, it's not surprising that other people try to see if they can run the same game. Well, I give points to Georgie. The play worked. I mean, he got his seat, and then everybody tried to get him out, and well, because the majority was so slim, well, Kevin McCarthy really needed to just vote. So the Republicans told us that they really are okay with criminals if it helps them. I mean, look, there's another one who lie about everything about who they are.
Mhm.
So, it seems that there is some pressure from inside some of the Republicans, at least the New York State Republicans really do want to get rid of him. And if it weren't for the fact that the majority is only 5 votes, he would probably be gone by right now because, I mean, let's face it, right? He's a Republican and he's going all over the place behaving like he's Trump and he's going to get all the love that Trump got and all the free passes that Trump got. But again, Georgie, as we keep reminding you, Trump is white. You're not.
You're not.
Trump is allegedly heterosexual. You are not. And Trump is allegedly rich and you're not. You're not Trump, girl.
It's not going to bode well for him.
It's like you are going to learn like this, that in the white supremacist party, even though you were the useful idiot, they are not going to come and help you because you are not one of them. And you also made the mistake of trying to get some of their own donors' money, which is rule number 1. Never steal from rich Republicans if you are a Republican politician, and everything will be fine. But you didn't do that, so you gots to go.
See ya. Wouldn't want to be ya.
Yep. And really, you should just go because you're a dick of a person. Like, seriously.
Yeah.
You stole your roommate's Burberry scarf and then appeared on TV with it.
Guy's an idiot.
Girl.
He's an
Please.
idiot.
All right. Mr. Grizzly, do we have a show?
We do. And just before we wrap up, I want to share a video clip from George Hahn.
Okay.
You know who George is in New York City?
You might have to remind me.
Well, he's an actor. He hasn't done a lot of work recently, you know, that whole pandemic. But he's also a bon vivant, a man about town in New York City, and he does great videos on the TikTok and on the Twitter. And here's a recent live. This is 1 minute and 23 seconds of George, well, saying it like only he can. I think you'll appreciate this as much as I do.
All right.
I am so sick of these misogynistic, racist, bigoted, homophobic assholes hiding behind God and the Bible and my wife on her knees praying and please. Are you kidding me? I cannot wait to elect our first black lesbian atheist. That's the political party I want to link to. Their slogan is freedom from religion. Can we have a little bit of that? I am so sick of these, I'm an asshole, I'm a prick, I'm a racist, I'm a homophobic, but I'm Christian and I'm an evangelical. Fuck off. Ugh. Enough already. Give me a black lesbian atheist. And let's throw trans on top of that. Let's really make their heads explode. I am so sick of this. God, religion, Bible, scripture, Christian. Gross. Just hiding behind it as an excuse. It's just sort of like it excuses everyone from being a prick. But even Christian, shut up. Ugh, I'm so sick of this. I am so.
And if you put her in a wheelchair and make her a single mother,
well, it'd be better if she was like, and she was also, raised as a Muslim, is now atheist. Like, just pile it on.
That's why I keep on making the joke. God, that big black lesbian in the sky. Oh man. All right. Mr. Grizzly, I think that's the end of the show. Kids, Cubs, we hope
That
that
is
you
definitely the end of the
love
show.
this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show because we love making it for you. Sharing is caring, so please tell your peeps and poops all about us. And because democracy is something that you do, if you live in the Northwest Territories, you have a territorial election coming on. So please, please, please make sure that you make a plan to vote. And remember, friends don't allow friends to do democracy alone. So bring friends with you.
Bring a friend.
Yeah. Be a good friend. Yeah. Donate to the Red Cross if you can. The campaign also, if you happen to have friends and family who live in Morocco, to help the people there, that is still on as well. And of course, in Canada to help here. Write your MPs, all that good stuff. Write your members of your media. It's like I said, it's really important. We're seeing it, like, for example, this carbon decision, that was people
Yes.
calling their MPs, sending letters, asking for meetings, whatnot. And you say, okay, we need to adjust that.
Mhm.
That's what happens when you go. So it does work. It really does work. You can
Sometimes
get
it's a
the
little
attention.
slow.
Yeah, but it does work. So write those letters. If you would like to make sure that you do not miss an episode, then thanks to the Ray Girl, Kids and Cubs, you do not have to. The generosity of the Ray Girl has made it so that our pod page can remain online, and that is where you go to in order to subscribe, so that as soon as we have something fresh off the bandwidth, it comes directly to you. So thank you very much to the Ray Girl.
And something I need to add to that for those of you who may
Yes.
not be aware, because we are a little behind on the audio version of the podcast. So once I release it, it goes to the pod page first. But here's something you might not be aware of. When you go to the pod page, this video is also there. You can click on a video link, and it will take you to all of our YouTube videos. I did link them to the pod page. So yeah, just go to the pod page, and you'll find the tab. I'll share the screen with you in a sec here once it loads. No, that's the wrong one. Hang on. Let me just, that's the background. I'm not showing you that one. That's let me just share this screen, and you'll be able to see when I click on the link, it'll take you if you are a subscriber, if you've gone to the pod page. There it is, the pod page. Scroll down, you can see this. There's the audio, so you can see we're behind by a few days because that's from last. But if you go up here and we click on videos, it's going to open a new page here, and it has all the videos from YouTube right here. All here to see. So you just click on it or click on more, and boom, you will get the video. So there's two ways to get the video, is what I'm saying. And you can still have the latest information from it's always there.
Ooh. It very, very much. All right.
Sorry, I made an error. I made a boo-boo.
Oh, you did?
No, it's back. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. Okay. All right. Good. So please go there. And since you like clicking on buttons and subscribing to stuff, well, hey, we've got buttons for you on our True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page. We have 1, 2, 3. Like, share, subscribe. So if you like to smash, especially since the weekend is coming, and, well, the weekend is prime smashing time, as we all know. Smash those buttons. What?
Saying anything.
What?
I'm not saying anything.
If the kids take my perfectly innocent words and hear double entendres in them and go to dirty places, that is not my fault. I am just an innocent beaver. So please, if you, yeah, I know you're gonna say I'm not that innocent. I'm not that innocent. Yeah. All right. So that's where you go. Like, share, subscribe. Please tell your friends. And of course, if you like what we do and you would like to encourage us to do more, or you'd like to encourage me to just be sillier than I am, then that little squiggly right by Mr. Grizzly's head brings you to our coffee page. That's coffee spelled ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, lowercase letters, all in one word. And that's where you can go to make your donation to the Eager Beaver Lodge Emergency Hydration Fund as we are getting close to the end of the month. We need your help. So,
Gotta pay some bills.
yes, if the end of the month is there and you happen to have a couple of loonies making some beautiful music because they're clinging together in your pockets and you can spare one, we would be very happy to relieve you of that extra weight.
Yes,
I mean, look at Mikey McNeil. Look at all that stuff she's got. I mean, she's going to pull something around her neck. If you have that much change in your pockets, you might be pulling a hip off to the side or something, or taking yourself out of balance. And we care about your health. We want you to have good posture. So if your pockets are a little heavy, allow us to help you lighten them. Smooth I am. We only want to help.
Sure.
We're altruistic. Yes, but anything that you donate does go back into the show, and we really do appreciate it. So thank you very much for your generosity, kits and cups. From the Beaver Lodge, this is your Eager Beaver saying, it could be a tough world out there, so please be kind to and gentle with yourself. Mr. Grizzly, some words of wisdom?
Try and have the best possible day you can today. Try and treat everyone you encounter today with kindness. A smile costs you nothing. Being kind costs you nothing. And, as Robin Williams, the late, great Robin Williams is famous for saying, everyone is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Be kind.
Mm-hmm.
Be kind.
Cost nothing.
Cost nothing. Now, sure, you may encounter a raging a-hole in your day that may make you want not to be kind to them.
All the more reason to be kind.
Unless they're being a loud, obnoxious, racist, sexist pig.
Yep.
Just be kind to them. If they're being that, maybe walk away, because you don't necessarily have this working for you where I can get in their face and have no fear.
Or you don't need to take on that energy.
Right. But otherwise, please be kind. It costs you nothing and pays back 100-fold.
Mm-hmm. Kit PNC Bio. Finally, a place on the internet to do a deep dive on beaver. Mr. Grizzly, roll the credits, please.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver media podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community and forum, and The Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from fresh farm ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind.
There you are, kids. I'm going to send you off on the weekend with a little celebratory news about some Canadians that are making us proud. First off is that at the Billboard Awards, which will be taking place, both Drake and The Weeknd, I believe, have 14 nominations each. Of course, La Taylor has the most, with 20.
No surprise.
Not surprising. She's having a super year. And I think when she released her album, I think like that first week, I think 10 songs from her album were the top 10 songs that week or something. So in terms of streaming. So yeah, I think she's going to be raking up. At our good friend Felix Auger-Aliassime, who had been in somewhat of a slump, seems to be recovering. He's at a tournament in Basel, Switzerland, which he won last year. So he's defending 500 ranking points and has won his first 2 matches. And his second match is against someone who is ranked 65th in the world. And it was a very convincing 6-4, 6-2 win. So maybe he's back. Maybe he's back. So let's hope for good things for him. And at the Pan American Games, our Canadian athletes are doing us proud. 83 medals so far, so closing in on the 100 with some while to go. The games go until the 5th, and then the Pan American Games start on November 17th, so we get to cheer for our para athletes as well. So I'm looking forward to that. But some people to celebrate, my friends. In badminton, Neil Kiyoshi Yakura and Xingyu Dong won gold in men's doubles. Brian Yang won gold in men's singles. Catherine Choi and Josephine Yunling Wong won gold in women's doubles. Rachel Junling Chan won bronze in women's singles. And Ty Alexander Lindemann and Josephine Yunling Wong won gold in mixed doubles. So we almost swept all the golds.
Really close, really close.
Really close. 4 out of the 5. Medals in all 5. In boxing, Junior Pekapatankwi won the bronze in the men's 71 kilogram category. Brian Ellis Mackenzie Colwell won bronze in the 92 kilogram category for men. Mackenzie Wright won bronze in the women's 50 kilogram category. And Charlie Kavanagh won the bronze in the women's 66 category. And there is one boxer by achieving this, reaching the semifinals, and I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but qualified for an Olympic spot in the process, which is good. The men's team sprint cycling team won gold, as did the women's team pursuit, and the women's team sprint team took bronze in cycling on the track. In diving, in addition to the people we mentioned the other day, more medals. Pamela Ware and Mia Vallée won in the 1 meter springboard. Pamela Ware, won gold and silver. Pamela Ware won a gold in the women's 3 meter springboard. And then Mia Vallée and Pamela Ware combined to win silver in the 3 meter springboard synchronized. So 3 medals for Pamela Ware. There you go.
Cool.
And then we have Maggie McNeil, we showed yesterday, has like something like
everything.
7 or ridiculous like that.
5 gold.
Yeah, 5 gold.
1 silver and 1 bronze.
Yeah. And there's more. There's way more, but that's where we will stop today, and hopefully we'll be able to give more of our athletes more credit in some upcoming shows.
Monday will not be a long form show. I have to be in the office at 8 a.m. on Monday for a big meeting. So there's a programming note, heads up, if you will. Monday will be a shorter than normal program because of prior commitments on my end.
But the problem, and it's a good problem to have, is that our athletes are racking up the medals faster than we have time in the show to celebrate them with. So
there you go. I have a question. Somebody asked me a question the other day because of my pronunciation of a specific word.
Okay.
And that word is kilometer. It's not a kilometer, it's a kilometer. It's a kilo and a meter. Also, somebody said, well, why do we pronounce it kilometer? I go, I don't know, because people are dumb. It's a kilometer. And it's a centimeter. It's not a centimeter. It's a centimeter and a kilometer. 1,000 meters. And that's all I've got to say. See ya. Food for thought. Bye.